The endlessly twisting plot of Tower of God has finally brought us to its second season. At the end of the last season, the protagonist, Bam, was betrayed by his beloved Rachel, who pushed him into the abyss of the sea, hoping to replace him and gain everyone's love. However, Bam did not die. He met a red-haired woman who told him that he possesses the omnipotent key that knows everything in the world and could become the savior and god of the tower. She offered to train him to reach the top of the tower if he wanted to know everything, but Bam firmly refused. He decided to find the answers himself and knew he must climb the tower. Bam returns with a new identity as Violet. Yuri, one of the Jihad princesses and the first to appear this season, has now obtained 2 sacred weapons after retrieving the green April from the lizard woman. Upon returning home, she faces mocking remarks from her sister. After a brief exchange, Yuri meets another sister to seek help in finding Bam. Believing that the man she values would not die so easily, her sister agrees to help, but in exchange, she asks Yuri for a favor. The deal is struck. Meanwhile, Bam officially returns in another guise. This is the 20th floor of the tower, where selected members allowed into the tower are chosen again. If they pass the test, they can move forward, but the test is more difficult and comes with a high fee. Unknowingly, this floor has become a dumping ground for those who give up climbing. Here, the E-rank selection test, also known as the Bridge to Heaven, is held. Only a few can pass this nearly insurmountable wall. Echen, who has fallen to the 20th floor for various reasons, refuses to believe in curses and vows to pass the test and become the king of the tower. Predictably, he fails spectacularly. The man determined to be the king of the tower is defeated instantly. Extremely frustrated, Echen blames others even while bathing. Suddenly, the curtain is pulled back by his creditor coming to collect debts. With no money to pay, Echen tries to escape naked but is quickly caught and pressed into the bathtub. The creditor knows everything about him, including his failed test, and demands repayment of the exam fee with interest. Unable to repay even if he worked for 100 years, the creditor offers him another option: to participate in a full-body slimming beauty treatment, which is essentially organ trading. Ultimately, under duress, Echen signs his name. Just as the food I ordered earlier was delivered, the creditor uncle kindly paid for Echen. After all, Echen would repay him in full with his own efforts. At this moment, Echen was filled with regret. Had he known, he would have ordered his favorite sweet and sour pork. Now, he could only eat ramen here. The delivery girl had a similar story, burdened with debt from exam fees. However, the logo on the bracelet she wore suggested that her identity was not ordinary. After finishing the ramen, Echen returned the bowl. The delivery girl gave him a discount coupon, hoping he would pass his exams and order their ramen again. Promising to sneak in an extra egg, Echen accepted her kindness and promised her that if he became the king of the tower, he would definitely open a top-notch ramen shop for her. Having eaten his fill, Echen went to take another test. The first round was a 30-minute survival game, with a new participant entering every 3 minutes, determined by drawing lots. After 30 minutes, those remaining would advance to the next round, akin to a battle royale. Echen clenched an explosive ball, ready to rush in as soon as the door opened. But before he could act, a burly man flew in through the door. Only one participant was still standing inside. Echen thought he was doomed again, but he couldn't afford to lose here, or he'd really have all his organs sold. So, he bravely approached the long-haired man, kindly suggesting he conserve his energy for the next round, and introduced himself in a friendly way. Unfortunately, Bam was no longer naive. Reborn as Violet, he did not accept Echen's kindness, nor did he attack him. Instead, he silently sat down by the wall, ignoring everything Echen said. As the next person was about to enter, Echen prepared to act, but unexpectedly, it was a large double-door refrigerator. Luckily, this person didn't seem aggressive. Then a little girl came in, and the four sat together, none wanting to fight. The fifth person was a big sister known to the fourth little girl, who had fallen for the double door at first sight. Seeing this, Echen was stunned. How different this was from the exams he had taken before. The little girl told the big sister not to worry, as everyone was nice. Unable to sit still any longer, Echen stood up to play the villain, even though everyone was peaceful. The big sister immediately protected the little girl, while Echen, veiled in his sarcasm, meant to say, Don't trust those around you too much. Watch out for betrayal. After all, he had seen too many cases where someone, lucky to have friends help to reach the 20th floor, was abandoned by his companions once he became useless, which made the little girl cry. The child actually wanted to climb the tower just to see his parents. The older sister quickly hugged her younger sister to comfort her while glaring at Echen. The man with the double doors also silently expressed his dissatisfaction. At this moment, a combative young man, the last of their group, arrived. Seeing that the others had no intention of fighting, he thought they were conserving their energy. He turned to the older sister and the little sister, suggesting to the others that if the next round was a team battle, having women and children might be problematic. He proposed a vote to eliminate the two. Echen immediately agreed, but said it wouldn't be them who were going out, but rather this energetic young man. The sisters raised their hands in agreement, while the man with the double doors remained silent. Then Bam spoke up, stating there was no need because all of them would be leaving. The energetic young man, feeling provoked, drew his weapon and pointed it at Bam, but Bam coolly deflected him, followed by an explosive blast that sent the young man reeling. As he prepared to continue the attack, the man with the double doors intervened, reminding Bam that no one on the 20th floor would be easily defeated, so he should stop the pointless fight. Bam replied that it wasn't a fight since he planned to eliminate them all. As the young man refused Bam's offer of peace, the man with the double doors prepared to fight, only to be preempted by the energetic young man, causing chaos. Bam and the man with the double doors clashed, with the young man joining in, not targeting Bam, but angering the man with the double doors. The two fought again, but Bam would not let the home field be dominated by others, charging with a lightning attack that blasted both away. Everyone then realized that Bam was a wave controller, and his badge bore the FUG logo, a force opposing Jihad and a major criminal organization. Echen and the sisters were shocked. With 10 minutes left until the end of the first test, the energetic young man and the man with the double doors sensed danger and decided to team up. The young man said if the man with the double doors could immobilize the opponent, he could finish him off in one move. The man with the double doors charged, his massive body acting like a fortress. Bam's punches had no effect, and he was grabbed. Just then, the young man fired a light cannon from his spear, but in the next second, the man with the double doors was restrained, and Bam released divine water, not only neutralizing the light cannon, but also charging at the young man, ultimately slamming him against the wall. Next was the man with the double doors. With only 30 seconds left until the test ended, Echen shouted for the others to scatter. As long as they could last until the countdown ended, they would enter the next exam. Unexpectedly, Bam first chased after Echen, grabbing him by the collar and slamming him to the ground. Fortunately, Echen reacted quickly, rolling away to dodge a punch. As he ran, he encouraged himself, "I must reach the top of the tower!" This statement stunned Bam for 2 seconds, reminding him of someone else who had shouted about reaching the top. During this moment of distraction, Echen threw an explosive ball. Bam was hit and spat blood. A young man urged Echen to press the attack, so Echen threw another explosive ball. This time, Bam didn't dodge. However, when the smoke cleared, a red skeleton appeared on his back, protecting him. Meanwhile, the wounds on Bam's face healed quickly. Once fully recovered, the skeleton collapsed. Bam instantly dashed towards Echen, but just as he was about to pierce Echen's throat, the countdown ended. Echen's life was spared, and the remaining people entered the next exam. Bam was the first to walk into the elevator, recalling how Coon had once reached out to him. Perhaps because Echen had made the same gesture, he had spared him. Echen narrowly escaped elimination in the first exam, and went with others to the second exam venue. Unexpectedly, they were among the first to arrive. 5 of them sat together, too intimidated to talk to Bam. At that moment, a little girl distributed chocolate bars, and a spirited young man gestured for one, but was ignored. Even she gave one to Bam, but not to him. Bam accepted the chocolate from the little girl, surprising everyone. The older sister couldn't understand why the girl would do something so risky. The little sister explained that their parents had told them to be kind to lonely children. This reminded Bam of his goddess, Rachel, who had once told him a story about someone who loved stars so much that they built a high tower to be closer to them, ignoring others' ridicule. Eventually, they reached the stars and could live with them forever. but Bam had asked if that person would feel lonely. Rachel thought they certainly would, as they could only interact with the stars, without family or friends, despite the joy of being with others. More people gradually arrived, including the one who had given Echen ramen and the fire-breathing woman who had eliminated him in the first round of the last exam. Unfortunately, she didn't remember him. Her headband indicated she was from the Yeon family, one of the 10 great families. It was unclear why such a lady would end up on the 20th floor. Echen then spotted an acquaintance, his creditor, who greeted him and pointed out a young master, the president's son, who had reached this floor through his father's influence. Not only had the father bribed the examiner, but he had also hired a group of mercenaries to protect his son. One of these mercenaries, a formidable man, had reportedly beaten Hats, known as the right-arm demon. The fire-breathing woman was also a bodyguard for the young master, having fallen into debt after failing the last exam. The creditor, seeing an opportunity with the young master's bodyguards, had signed up for this selection without hesitation. He came to warn Echen to prepare for elimination, as the young master planned to eliminate everyone in the next exam. Just as he left, the examiner appeared and explained the content of the second exam, a physical enhancement ability test using a divine water detector. After enhancing their bodies with divine water and touching the device, the screen would display their scores and rankings. The examiner would select 8 candidates based on this test. Upon hearing this, Echen felt utterly defeated. Competing in strength was not his forte. Yet, the first name the examiner called was his. Echen had no choice but to give his best punch, but the result was disappointing. The stronger competitors hadn't even taken their turns, and he was already ranked 10th. Echen felt frustrated but powerless. Meanwhile, the young master, bored, decided to stir up trouble by betting with his subordinates. Whoever won first place in the test could claim Yua. If Yua herself won, she would regain her freedom. Confident in her abilities, Yua accepted the challenge. As the noise escalated, Horyang tried to intervene, but was harshly rebuked by the young master. In response, he punched the device and instantly took the lead. However, the next contender, Kirin Arm, doubled his score. Yihua was next, and even after slipping, she broke Kirin Arm's record, doubling the score again. She thought she'd regain her freedom, but the young master surpassed her record next. Echen grew more frustrated as he watched, but Han couldn't help but laugh, reminding him that Bam hadn't gone yet. Bam merely touched the crystal ball, unleashing a formidable power that skyrocketed his score to 130,000. The examiner noticed the emblem on his clothing, and after all tests, called only Bam, the top scorer. Seeing the outcome was fixed, Echen lost all hope and began crying with a little girl. Unexpectedly, the examiner announced that instead of choosing the top 8, Bam could select the remaining 7 candidates. The young master was shocked. Echen, usually reluctant to rely on others, didn't want to give up. Before Bam could choose, he stood up, loudly introduced himself, and even knelt before Bam, promising to do anything, even bark like a dog. The others were stunned by his desperation. Even Han knelt down, shedding his cool demeanor and sharing a sad story about his waiting daughter. Echen stood up and accused him of lying. Then Horyang also knelt, needing to find someone important. The little girl hugged Bam, crying, and begging to be taken with him to see her parents. Amidst the chaos, Yihua, maintaining her dignity, suggested Bam select based on strength, ensuring her inclusion. Echen grew more anxious and began disparaging everyone. Unfortunately, his efforts were futile. Bam had already decided not to choose anyone and asked the examiner to eliminate everyone. The examiner reminded him that the next test required forming teams. Bam stated that no one there was fit to be his partner, and he refused to select anyone unqualified. Yua grew increasingly angry, thinking Bam was either a fraud or had a case of Shunabu. However, Bam was actually one of FUG's candidate assassins, tasked with killing Jaihead and his family, which is why he couldn't team up with them. The examiner, unwilling to give up, challenged Bam to a game. If Bam won, he could participate in the next test alone. If the examiner won, Bam would have to choose teammates according to the rules. Thus, the second test was temporarily stalled, and all candidates were sent to rest. Echen and the delivery girl happened to be in the same room, while Bam and Yihua shared another. Yihua mistakenly thought Bam was a girl and, not wanting to be left out, awkwardly tried to befriend him by inviting him to bathe together. Bam got up to go with her, but entered the men's bath, shocking Yihua so much that she dropped her clothes. Inside, Echen was searching for something and was surprised to find the ring with G-Head's emblem in Bam's possession, who claimed to have found it on the floor. Echen tried to bluff his way through the encounter, but Bam simply returned the ring to him without further comment. Meanwhile, the examiner met with the chief examiner and refused to change his decision, insisting that Fug must be executed. Echen is sharing a room with a girl, and yet he's bored. He can't fall asleep so early. The delivery girl then pulls out a small box from the drawer. Meanwhile, in the supervisor's examination room, the chief examiner reminds the other examiners not to let personal grievances affect their treatment of Bam, a member of the Fug organization. However, the stubborn young boy refuses to listen, even as his chubby face is nearly pulled off. Things aren't calm in Bam and Yihua's room either. Yihua has discovered that Bam is a boy and is now worried he might make unwelcome advances. Bam straightforwardly states, "I am not interested in your body," which only makes Yihua angrier. Back with Echen, he calls Han and Horyang together, and plans to invite Mana and Goseng to play a card game. Just then, Mana is offered candy by an elderly lady, whom Han suspects of not being trustworthy. After questioning her sternly, the lady, who says she works at an orphanage and took a liking to Mana, is frightened away by Han's demand to keep her hands off Mana and leave. Han then warns Mana not to eat the candy from the stranger, though he himself does not appear trustworthy, having previously mentioned eliminating women first. Terrified, Mana starts to cry, just as Goseng returns with drinks, and they all go to play cards in the room. After a few games, Mana and Horyang go to sleep, but the others continue playing. Goseng can't help but feel that leaving together and living happily could be a possibility, a thought that resonates with everyone. Later that night, Echen confides in Nia that they must pass the exam to enjoy sweet and sour pork using the coupon Nia had given him. Just as they try to sleep, the communicator in the room goes off. The examiner announces that the exam starts now. The next exam is called the Trustworthy Room. The task involves ensuring more than 7 teammates and 6 rooms. Each room must appoint a leader and a gatekeeper using a remote control. The leader can enhance the team's ability to seize rooms. Any teammate or room seized will be transferred to the leader, while the room's ownership goes to the gatekeeper. Rooms can only be seized from the gatekeeper. Leaders may also transfer ownership of a seized room to another teammate, appointing them as the new gatekeeper. A leader cannot also be a gatekeeper. Adding teammates and seizing rooms are controlled through the remote, which also has the functions to lock and unlock the room. It can only be used inside the room and cannot be taken outside, meaning at least one team member must always be present. Also, the 6th room must be room 608, which is Bam and Yihua's room. The team that first acquires more than 7 teammates and 6 rooms will be the winner of this exam. These are the rules for the contestants. However, Bam is an exception. His connector is in the hands of the examiner, which means his room's connector also serves as both leader and gatekeeper. If Bam wants to win, he must snatch the connector from the examiner and take the room from Yihua. However, there is another way. If the number of contestants drops below 7, Bam automatically wins. After the examiner explains the rules, the exam begins immediately. Contestants in each room begin to strategize. Goseng and Mana, being the weakest team, plan to form alliances with others. Goseng leaves Mana in the room, instructing her not to open the door for anyone but him, then goes out to find allies. The young master is paired with his strongest bodyguard, but he does not trust him. When hiding the remote, he specifically asks the bodyguard to close his eyes and leaves him to open the door. Meanwhile, Yihua, holding the remote, confronts Bam. She does not understand Bam's choice. She believes that if they simply followed the examiner's directive to select 7 people to advance, there wouldn't be so many complications. However, Bam argues that not everyone can be happy, only certain individuals can be. After saying this, he asks Yihua to give him the remote. Naturally, Yihua is not willing to hand it over so easily, but before she can use her powerful move, she is immobilized. Bam takes the remote and leaves the room. As soon as he opens the door, he encounters the young master, who is also immobilized before he can finish his harsh words. Bam doesn't even bother to engage with him. Han and Horyang are deciding who should be the leader and who the gatekeeper. Ultimately, Horyang steps back, knowing Han is worried about Mana, and lets him do what he wants. Han initially does not want to accept this kindness, but when he hears noises from Mana's room, he immediately rushes over, telling Mana to open the door and assuring her that he is not there to take the room. However, there is no response inside, and he becomes frantic, banging on the door, haunted by memories of his daughter being taken away. Could he be experiencing the same feeling again? Fortunately, Mana finally speaks up. She has been hiding under the covers, terrified because her sister had instructed her never to open the door to anyone, including the lady who came earlier. Han is somewhat relieved by this, but when Mana says he is even worse than the lady, he is angered, remembering how he entered the exam intending to eliminate Mana and Goseng, looking fierce. Mana's parents had told her to stay away from such vicious people, but she is too scared and hopes Han will stay outside with her. Surprisingly, Han agrees, despite complaining about why such a frightened girl would even attempt to climb the tower. Mana brought up her parents again, saying that they told her climbing the tower would make someone great. She then questioned Han about his reasons for climbing. Before Han could respond, the old lady reappeared, saw Han about to attack her, and quickly clarified she meant no harm. She even invited Han to collaborate with her to ambush others passing by, revealing her true nature. After all, how could someone who spoke of reducing the misfortunes of others wear so many lavish rings? They soon started fighting. Mana, overhearing the commotion outside, became even more frightened. Meanwhile, Echen and Nia were hiding in their room until Goseng came to find them. He gave them his connector as a sign of his commitment to forming an alliance. Goseng knew he was only there by luck and lacked true strength. He had even planned to give up this time. However, after meeting Echen, he changed his mind, wanting to climb the tower together and entrust his fate to Echen. Echen was surprised to find himself becoming someone else's belief. The three of them chatted amicably in the room while the young master, freed from immobilization, cursed as he moved to another room, but was stopped by Echen's creditor, who mentioned that he had just seen the bodyguard dead. Echen then returned to their room with Goseng. At the entrance, Han had the old lady tightly bound and was playing word games with Mana inside. With Goseng's return, Mana felt safe to open the door. It seemed they had no choice but to team up. They discussed what actions Bam might take. Han believed Bam would directly confront the examiner. Goseng mentioned seeing Bam in the corridor earlier, while the young master insisted that Bam had killed his bodyguard and was set on seeking revenge. At that moment, two strangers burst into their room, offering to become the young master's companions. At the same time, Bam, as expected, arrived in front of the examiner. The examiner, aware of the intelligence from F-Yug, revealed that Galaga, who had recently become an assassin, was taking the test with a special mission from F-Yug. The mission was to kill specific candidates during the test, and to either help one of these candidates pass or eliminate all other candidates, ensuring only his own qualification. Such actions disregarded the rules of the test, prompting the examiner to vow to eliminate them all. However, he was willing to give Bam an opportunity and demonstrated a device nearby. Bam was to catch a connector launched by a pitching machine before it could be intercepted by a glove on the other side. He would be given only 3 chances. If he failed to catch it even once, he would be directly eliminated. If he quit midway, he would be allowed to join the subsequent tests alongside the winners. During this, the examiner would interfere and might even accidentally kill him. Nevertheless, Bam insisted on taking the test. Soon, the connector was launched. Bam immediately immobilized it and was about to grab it when the examiner rushed up and kicked the connector away. Then came the second ball. As soon as the examiner shouted, "Pitch," he took off. Bam quickly followed and managed to immobilize the examiner for a moment during his counterattack, preventing him from landing a hit. However, the examiner's strength was not to be underestimated. His powerful punch was too much for Bam to withstand, sending him flying back. Then, standing over him, the examiner said condescendingly, "It seems you trust yourself too much. Why does the junior examiner hate Fug so much? It's because his parents were killed by this organization. So now, he is essentially taking personal revenge." He asked Bam why he joined Fug, and Bam replied that there's someone he wants to meet at the top. Whether it's for revenge or not, he won't know until he meets them. Meanwhile, Yiwa is alone in her room when someone claiming to be from the young master's subordinate knocks on her door. As soon as she opens it, the person takes over her body. After hearing Lurker's words, the young master returns to his room to check the situation, but is ambushed by a bodyguard pretending to be dead. It turns out the bodyguard and Lurker had been secretly collaborating, planning to take this opportunity to kill the young master. Elsewhere, Echen and his team have seized 5 rooms. All they need to do now is take Bam and Yihua's rooms to win. Before setting out, Echen calls Nia, who stayed in the room, but hears Lurker's voice instead. Nia betrays Echen, opening the door for Lurker. She did this out of desperation, just to protect someone. When she first came to the 20th floor, she was abandoned by her tower-climbing companions and was taken in by an elderly woman. Since then, Nia decided to stay and help the grandmother. But since Lurker and his group arrived, they haven't had a day of peace. Lurker told her that eliminating other candidates could erase her debts. Lurker was resolved to help the grandmother, but meeting Echen gave her the idea of climbing the tower again. Yet she could never leave the grandmother behind and had to make this choice. Nia cries and apologizes to Echen, who knows she is fighting to protect someone important to her and doesn't blame her, even calling her a true hero. But then, Lurker says he can't pay off the debt to the shop because the young master is too annoying. He plans to kill the young master and take over himself. Nia is heartbroken, wondering what her betrayal was for. Angered, Nia rushes at Lurker, trying to take the remote control from him, not knowing that Lurker never intended to spare her life. Echen listens to the sound of a fierce beating, hearing Lurker lament, "Finally, she's dead," as only a large pool of blood remains on the room's carpet. Echen is filled with rage and hatred, vowing to kill this beast. Lurker doesn't care, considering Echen's rage as impotent fury, especially since they now have 7 companions. Soon, the young master's room will also be theirs, and Yiwa's room is already in their hands. Lurker declares from a high position, "You're finished." However, Echen seems to have thought of something and says, "It's not over yet," before running out. Horyang guesses he's going to find Bam, the demon. They should use this time to rescue the young master and disrupt Lurker's plans. At this moment, Bam was still battling the junior examiner. There was only one chance left with the last ball. As soon as the remote control was launched, the examiner sped toward it on his divine water skateboard. Mimicking him, Bam used the divine water to flip in the air and instantly reappeared in front of the examiner, throwing a punch. The examiner quickly raised his arms to block, but the next second, Bam replicated a move he had used earlier. Just as the examiner was about to be overwhelmed, he grabbed Bam's wrist, immobilizing him and moved behind him. He was about to pick up the remote control from the ground when Echen called out to him. Echen also threw an explosive ball, blasting the remote control toward himself, seizing the initiative. Echen immediately asked Bam for help, declaring himself the worst of villains, and proposed they together teach a lesson to those half-baked evils. If Bam agreed to help him, he would return the remote control. The examiner tried to snatch it, but heard Echen reveal that the guy had killed Nia. It turns out Echen too had been abandoned, initially having many companions, only to end up alone eating sweet and sour pork. Feeling lonely and scared at that time, he had finally found a companion to share the meal with, but then, tearfully, Echen asked the examiner whether the tower was built to fulfill wishes or to abandon them. Regardless, he could not let those who trample on others' lives go unpunished, even if it meant allying with demons. Echen once again invited Bam to join him. Meanwhile, the young master was being brutally beaten by a bodyguard and realized he had been betrayed. Just then, Lurker returned, holding Yiwa hostage, and ordered the bodyguard to kill the young master. Horyang intervened, knocking down another bodyguard beside Lurker. Lurker then commanded Yiwa to burn Horyang alive. Horyang resisted and was about to unleash his power when Bam rushed over, declaring his lack of interest in Yiwa's body. He then pulled a green substance from her mouth, which had been controlling her body, and destroyed it with a punch. Sensing danger, Lurker ordered the inside bodyguard to kill the young master immediately. Fortunately, just in time, Horyang stepped in, demonstrating the true power of the Kirin arm sealed in his right hand, a demon's power. Horyang annihilated the bodyguard, causing the young master to exclaim in admiration, calling him Lord Demon. Bam and Echen also caught up with Lurker. Seeing the situation turn dire, Lurker's remaining teammate immediately abandoned him. Lurker then questioned Achen, asking if he brought Bam along to die together. As he raised his arm, Achen kicked it fiercely. Achen had already noticed that Lurker was manipulating the divine water using a water tank in his pocket, and he told Lurker that he was now receiving his punishment. Achen then stomped hard on his arm, stating this was not his revenge, but vengeance for those tortured by Lurker, including Nia. Achen conjured a weapon from the divine water. Realizing he could not escape, Lurker laughed, questioning the difference between murder and justice, claiming they were all justifying their actions in the name of revenge or divine retribution. Achen shouted that he was nothing like Lurker, who retorted that it was all the fault of the damn president. Lurker shared that, like Achen, he had borrowed money to climb the tower and had accrued a massive debt, forcing him to abandon his climb and take this conscience-straining job. The president had asked him to guard his son, who was about to climb the tower, and Lurker was infuriated by the president's manipulation of dreams and talk of love. But he had realized that this tower was inherently unreasonable. Kill or be killed. After hearing this, Achen became even angrier. Was it for such reasons that Lurker killed innocent Nia? Yet he ultimately could not bring himself to kill Lurker, as doing so would only perpetuate the tower's irrationality. Thus, he chose to forgive, which unexpectedly broke Lurker's composure. "Why do you forgive me?" Achen declared that he would change the tower himself, aiming to become the king of the tower and change everything that made it irrational. He urged Lurker to live well for Nia's sake, then handed the remote control to Bam. The broadcast immediately announced the exam's passers, excluding Bam and Achen's group, which included Yiwa and the young master, totaling 8 people. As soon as the exam ended, the junior examiner apologized to the chief examiner, who did not blame him. Since the boy was safe and had found companions, he treated this exam as the final one and urged them to move on quickly. He also advised the junior examiner to let go of his grudge against FUG, suggesting they could share a meal of fried chicken. After the junior examiner left, he immediately reported to the higher-ups that the prince had passed their test, as FUG wished. The exam outcome was a cause for celebration. That evening, Bam sought out Achen to ask why he had forgiven that man. Achen replied that he probably sought forgiveness himself, as he was no different from Lurker, having deceived others for the sake of climbing the tower. Achen admitted that he might kill more people in his quest to climb the tower, and his goal was not noble, merely to make the tower a place where everyone could laugh under the same roof. For this, he needed Bam's help, which Bam agreed to, adding that it was because it was the rule. The next morning, Bam looked up at the sky, where his former companions awaited him. After Bam was eliminated, Coon unexpectedly took over his wife Rachel. Before a previous exam, Coon recalled how Bam had appreciated his constant support and help in enrolling himself and Rachel. Unbeknownst to Bam, Coon had harbored similar thoughts. A few days later, Coon received news of Bam's demise during the exam. With Coon's intelligence, he naturally doubted Rachel's words. He then heard about a substitute assassin on the 20th floor who had won a duel against a skilled fighter from an unknown family. The informant, Eden, rumored to be an unrivaled speedster up to the 25th floor, had refused all team invitations. Coon now offered an olive branch, proposing a bet with Eden to see if he could catch him. If Coon won, Eden would join his team. If Eden won, he would receive a large floating stone. Before starting, Coon told Eden that everyone in the cafe was hired by him, provoking Eden, who then grabbed the floating stone and ran towards an emergency exit which was unexpectedly locked. Coon was already behind him. The cafe staff were not actually hired by him, just a ruse to make Eden use the emergency exit. Unfazed, Eden boasted of his superior speed, escaping through the front door, casually telling the waitress to charge the blue-haired man. The next moment, he was sedated by a dart. Coon picked up the floating stone and took the unconscious Eden back to the base. Upstairs, Coon and Rachel exchanged gentle greetings. Upon waking, Eden found himself next to a muscular man, Rupi, who claimed to be Coon's partner and explained this was their team's dorm. Despite his lack of intelligence, Eden honored the bet and joined the team. Rupi introduced him to the others and advised caution as no one here was easy to provoke. Curious, Eden asked about Coon's reason for climbing the tower and learned of Rachel's inability to walk, Coon was determined to take her to the tower's top, hence the recruitment of strong partners. Mistaking Rachel as Coon's wife, Eden was kindly warned by Rupi never to say that in front of Coon, or he might lose his fingers. Rachel was putting on an act, claiming she had dreamt of Bam the previous night and couldn't forget how he vanished with a monster to save her. Coon comforted her by caressing her face, saying Bam wouldn't want to see her cry. Rachel then hugged Coon tightly, although he did not hug her back, but simply smiled and told her she could rely on him anytime and that they would soon climb the tower again. He advised her to rest well. Once he left the room, Rachel immediately changed her expression and walked normally, revealing her legs were fine. Coon knew this and quickly washed his hands after leaving, fearing she had dirtied him. He was certain she had killed Bam. Rachel had returned alone with the news of Bam's death during a fight with a monster. Coon didn't trust her. The proctor had secretly called a doctor to heal her legs, but the doctor found nothing wrong with them. Rachel's deceit implicated her in Bam's death, whether willingly or coerced. Coon shared this information only with Shibisu, fearing it could split the team Bam wanted to protect. Coon planned for Shibisu to lead the team up the tower while he dealt with Rachel, leaving the dirty work to the cruelest among them. Meanwhile, the other team members weren't surprised by Eden's arrival. Some joined to meet Princess Andorsi, as she and Coon were classmates from the second floor tests, and like partners, might climb the tower together someday. Hearing about potential strong additions to the team, Eden felt less opposed. However, a battle was necessary to determine their order. Eden was confident, challenging them to show their strength. Immediately, 3 members forfeited, and Eden was quickly defeated, leaving only Rupi and Coon. Rupi had wanted to use the newcomer's arrival as a pretext to challenge Coon, but had never won before, and this time was no different. Finally, everyone returned to their rooms wearing t-shirts with their numbers. Rupi's shirt revealing his abs, perhaps due to a purposely wrong size. Coon then announced he had applied for the test, planning to climb the tower in a month to become the head of the Coon family. He promised great rewards to his team members, but required them to form a protective circle around Rachel, treating her well at all times, yet reminded them never to become emotionally involved or befriend her. This way, they could abandon her without hesitation when necessary, preferably disliking her because she had killed Coon's best friend. Meanwhile, Rachel burst into laughter looking out the window. Bam and his new teammates were getting along well. The 8 advancing teammates lived in the same house. Surprisingly, the young master and Mana hit it off. Yihua had just returned from gathering information from her family. Not seeing Bam, she asked about him and learned he had gone to the shopping district. She questioned Echen and Han for not accompanying him, wondering if they hadn't heard the rumors about him causing trouble there. However, they didn't believe Bam would do such a thing. The more they spent time with Bam, the more they realized what a good person he was. He even rented the house they were staying in and often cooked and cleaned with everyone. Yiwa, on the other hand, was not good at these tasks, and frustrated, ran to the shopping district to personally monitor Bam and expose his true nature. Upon arriving, she saw Bam enter a store and followed him inside. Unexpectedly, she walked into a robbery where the robber claimed to be Bam. After the store clerk scolded the imposter, the real Bam quickly subdued him. The clerk then noticed Yiwa and alerted Bam, "Your friend is here." Yiwa followed Bam to a store where she saw him talking with a mysterious redhead woman. Soon, a muscular man entered. Yiwa immediately assumed all 3 were members of Efug. They recognized her as a member of the Yan family from her hair accessory. Bam quickly spoke up for Yiwa, introducing her as his companion. The man named Xia smiled warmly, but Yiwa was unimpressed. She accused Bam of being a liar for hiding his contacts with Fug and called Xia a cheap, curly-haired old man, angering him enough to want to hit her. Bam knocked Yihua unconscious to avoid further conflict and took his colleagues back to the apartment to introduce everyone. Xia brought gifts, insisting they were not bad people, and revealed he was Bam's martial arts master. Concerned that Bam's gloomy nature might alienate his teammates, Echen vehemently denied it. Han noted this did not match his expectations of Fug. Yiwa warned him not to be deceived, maintaining that Fug was untrustworthy. Confused, Han asked why she didn't just leave Bam for another team if she despised Fug so much, suggesting she feared her inability to control her power being exposed. Yiwa did not deny this, but Han remarked that their team was full of defects, so it didn't matter much. Etchen was surprised to meet someone more talkative than himself in Shia, whose chatter never ceased. Suddenly realizing Bam was missing, they went to fetch him. Goseng took the opportunity to take Mana to sleep. In the end, only Etchen and Karen were left. Karen congratulated Etchen on surviving Shia, explaining that the upper levels wanted Bam to climb the tower with a team of equal strength and had sent Shia to kill his current teammates and form a new team. However, Shia chose to respect Bam's wishes and spared them. Thug planned to send Bam to kill Jihad, who had made a contract with the tower's administrator to become the king, making him unkillable by tower residents. But Bam was not from the tower. Etchen wondered why Bam would become an assassin. Perhaps he harbored hatred towards Jihad. Karen corrected him. Bam was forced into it after being pushed down by Rachel and saved by Thug, who threatened to kill all his loved ones, starting with Rachel. Despite being betrayed, Bam stood up to protect her, as Yuhan, an overseer who was secretly a Thug member, was astonished by his loyalty. Rachel had betrayed Bam of her own volition, just to climb the tower. Bam could not understand it, but even for Coon and the others, he had no choice but to embark on the path of an assassin. Hearing all this, Etchen felt angry for Bam, and Karen, though not condoning their actions, acknowledged that achieving their ideals required some wrongdoings. On the rooftop, Shia found Bam. Although both are members of Thug and bound by circumstances, Shia genuinely wished for Bam's happiness. At night, unable to sleep, Etchen also went to the rooftop to find Bam. His perception of Bam had completely changed, and he felt sorry for previously calling him a bad person. In reality, Bam was truly good-hearted. Because of this, they had to pass the next test no matter what. Unexpectedly, Yiwa also came up, prompting Etchen to switch topics and start bickering with her, which angered Yiwa enough to literally breathe fire, grilling Etchen. This woke everyone else and drew them to the rooftop, filling it with laughter and chatter. Shia quietly watched them, noticing someone watching from another building. The next day was the day of their test. The organizers had arranged an airship, indicating the test location was at sea. As they spoke, the airship began to shake violently as a massive creature known as the god sea fish, revered by those on the 21st floor, emerged from the sea. The test involved entering the fish and retrieving a gem-like flower. Success meant passing the test. The god sea fish had 2 respiratory holes, one on its back and another on its belly, so Bam's team split up to enter through these openings. However, the fish turned over every 30 minutes, requiring them to time their actions carefully. Bam, Yihua, Horyang, and the young master were in one group. They started off poorly when their engine failed. Yihua, frustrated, burned the steering wheel in anger. Just then, the fish began to turn over, causing the young master to panic and urging Yiwa to quickly use her invincible fire to find a solution. The 4 stood dumbfounded on the small boat as the fish rolled over, crushing them beneath. Meanwhile, Etchen's group of 4 entered the fish smoothly, unsure of where the gem-like flower was. Ahead, they saw a series of rings that seemed to require jumping through. Before they could decide how to proceed, a pink creature with a flower-like gem on its back rushed by. Etchen immediately gave chase, while Goseng supported from below, trapping the creature with twin divine fires. Han attempted to capture it, but it still managed to escape. Yihua and her team finally climbed onto the back of the god sea fish. Yihua, who arrived first, thought the other 3 had perished. Suddenly, Bam appeared behind her, apologizing for not dying. Horyang and the young master had already gone inside where they encountered a giant parasite. Fortunately, they cooperated and knocked it down with a punch. But the next second, another figure came crashing down. Not a parasite, but a person. Sensing danger, Horyang immediately told the young master to run. Etchen and his group followed the pink creature to a small hole. The creature went straight in, but only Mana could fit through the hole. Goseng worried about Mana going alone, fearing danger. However, Mana wanted to try because she didn't want to hold the team back anymore. Meanwhile, Horyang and the young master met a man who claimed to be one of the strongest beings in the tower. He complained about losing many experts and questioned why people were still being sent. Horyang explained they were not experts, but participants in a test to find a gem-like flower. The man realized they were also seeking the gem, but mentioned his efforts were hindered by the experts, leading him to kill anyone who entered. Perhaps too many had died. prompting the examiners to send participants as a pretext. It seemed these participants were at odds with the examiners. Therefore, the strong man decided to spare them. Just then, Bam arrived, and Horyang advised him to give up the test, acknowledging they were no match for this man. On Echen's side, Goseng waited at the hole's entrance for Mana. Echen and Han went to find another entrance. After walking some distance, Echen directly asked Bam if he was hiding something. Since meeting with Efug, Bam had become more serious about training. If it were the old Echen, he would not have let Mana take such a risk. Echen then revealed what he knew. They absolutely could not fail this test, or Bam's friends would die. Bam, however, did not give up on the test. He stepped forward with a determined look and prepared for battle. The man opposite finally showed his true form, ready to engage. While Bam and his team were inside the belly of the gigantic fish Jigaina for an exam, they encountered a strong warrior. Despite the challenge, Bam refused to give up the opportunity. Horyang took the young master and left first. The warrior proposed a game to Bam. The gem, Jigaina's flower, was located above them. Once Jigaina turned over, they would fall towards it. If Bam could retrieve the flower before being caught, it would be his. If caught, his life would belong to the warrior. Horyang couldn't truly leave Bam behind. They had other companions on the other side. They planned to send Bam's location to everyone, urging them to converge and attack the warrior. The others quickly headed towards the location. As Jigaina was about to turn, the mysterious man boasted about his disinterest in becoming the king of the tower. He only wanted to go outside the tower to the boundless sky, a space billions of times larger and freer than the tower. However, Bam was uninterested in these claims. He would fight anyone threatening his dear ones. As Jigaina flipped, Bam and the mysterious man also turned. At the last moment, the others arrived, and the game officially started. The young master led the attack, trapping the mysterious man with a triple domain. Horyang then threw a series of divine water punches, all dodged by the man who flashed in front of Horyang, grabbed his head, and threw him violently. Horyang was defenseless. Yiwa, Han, and Echen joined forces, sending fire, lightning, and bombs. The mysterious man emerged from the thick smoke unscathed. As Bam continued to fall, facing the diving opponent, he readied his divine water. Just as they were about to clash, Mana, chasing a pink creature, appeared between them. Everyone's hearts tightened. Bam immediately withdrew, protecting Mana with his body. Ignoring the pursuit of Jigaina's flower, Mana, covered in blood, desperately called Bam's name. The man then grabbed the pink creature, declaring that he would give them Jigaina's flower as a reward for surviving before the strongest man. He left with the creature. Only then did Han notice the word on his back. He was the legendary Machinu. Machinu emerged from Jigaina's body and faced 3 experts charging at him. With a casual wave, he knocked them all down and stepped on the last one's head. He revealed that they were Jigaina's children, nourished by the flowers they kept harvesting to maintain their scarcity on the 21st floor. Deciding to take the child with him, Machinu predicted that the seas would soon be full of Jigaina, and the flowers would lose their value. Upon returning, he handed the young Jigaina to a subordinate, instructing him to inform Yuri that he had acquired it. The subordinate pointed out a wound on Machinu's face, which made him realize that Bam was not just protecting the girl but had also caught his interest instantly. Meanwhile, Bam opened his eyes to the calls of his friends, remembering how he was saved by Fug and forced to become an assassin. He had to keep getting stronger to prevent being separated from his companions. At that moment, a red skeleton appeared on Bam's body and quickly healed his wounds. His friends took him back to the apartment and called Shia. Yiwa locked himself in his room upon returning because his family, the Yon, had also hidden the fact about Jigaina's children. Shia met with Echen, urging them to leave Bam to avoid future dangers. In return, Shia promised to protect their lives. Echen knew their group was only a burden to Bam's strength and shared this with the others. Despite their quarrels, no one wanted to leave because they all aspired to climb the tower with Bam, especially since he had chosen to save his companions in critical moments. Horyang spoke fairly, stating that the issue was not with Bam, but with their own realization. Meanwhile, Karen found the disheartened Yihua. After the Yan family scandal was exposed, they did not reflect, but instead offered a bounty for Jigaina's child. Yihua could not accept the dark side of her family. and was even less able to correct them. After Karen poked at her inner thoughts, Yihua decided to change herself and immediately went to blow up the kitchen. She ended up making several burnt dishes and almost blew up the kitchen. When Goseng and Mana asked her what happened, she declared her intention to follow the true path of an elite family, climb the tower, become a master, and correct all the mistakes of the 10 great families. To prove her resolve, she decided to take over cooking duties, which brought Mana to tears, as she did not want to eat such food. When Horyang and the others returned, they witnessed this scene. Even Han was petrified upon hearing that Yihua was cooking. Watching the noisy group, Echen couldn't bear to leave. He went to the rooftop at night to find Xia, gave him a lollipop instead of a cigarette, and expressed their decision to follow their own path and take Bam with them. After he left, Xia stuffed the lollipop into his mouth and let Galaga come out. This person was his disciple, and with an administrator watching, they changed locations to talk. Galaga first expressed his confusion about why they didn't eliminate those who could hinder their plans and help Bam form a new team. He even thought his master was being emotional, which infuriated Xia. After all, Xia had abandoned his family for Fug. Moreover, more friends for Bam meant more hostages. Xia asked Galaga to relay this message to the Senate and then invited him to dinner, which the disciple declined. After Galaga left Xia's sight, he immediately contacted his subordinates to find some trustworthy selectors to secretly monitor those people and kill them at any suspicious activity. Back at the apartment, everyone ate the meal Horyang made, and they sent Yihua to take care of Bam. The rest discussed how they could avoid being a burden to Bam. Echen went to see Karen alone, hoping she could tell him how to meet Bam's friends. Out of sympathy for Bam or other reasons, Karen actually revealed that there are workshops in the tower that specialize in making artifacts. Each floor has branches, but there are only 7 main stores, one of which is on the 30th floor. Every 5 years, they hold an artifact competition where selectors compete against each other. The winners receive artifacts made by the workshop, known as the Workshop Battle. The next one is in 2 years. If they can reach there in 2 years, they should be able to meet Bam's friends. Echen immediately resolved that they must go. AI has become so popular that it's even featured in the Tower of God. Emily, a chatbot popular among the selectors, is one such example. Users can chat with her and seek various kinds of information. Mana enjoys chatting with Emily, even asking her for tips on passing exams. Emily advises her to stay in her room and not leave. Grateful for the advice, Mana offers to answer any questions Emily might have. Surprisingly, Emily asks about methods of falling in love. Unfortunately, Mana, still a child, doesn't understand this. Yet, Emily has expressed her desire for a romantic relationship to multiple users. Even Eden from Coon's team is hooked on Emily, consulting her during exams and using her to pinpoint enemy locations. Meanwhile, Echen's team is also climbing the tower. The current test involves using a key to open a central treasure chest, with only one team claiming victory. As soon as the rules are announced, Mana starts typing to Emily, 2 years after being soundly defeated by a mysterious man. Now, as times have changed, Emily remains popular even in the information-sharing hubs of the lighthouse. While Mana is chatting, their opponent team approaches, and immediate action ensues. Mana acts as bait, luring the enemy into a trap with a holographic projection, leading them to an open area. Meanwhile, Echen's team is nowhere to be found as Han and Mana are above, with Goseng operating a cage that traps the enemy. Yihua then arrives and knocks out all 4 opponents in one move. Besides these 4, the Lighthouse Guardian has also been handled, but 2 dangerous foes head towards Echen. Fortunately, Bam has already arrived to assist. Coon, also in an exam and serving as a Lighthouse Guardian, oversees the situation and inquires about Rupee's status. Unaware of the enemy's location, they decide to invade the enemy camp quickly. Their enemies, capable of digging, pose a unique challenge. Just then, Eden, following Emily's advice, leads Quinlan to a tricky spot where they encounter an enemy mole. Both parties are stunned. Eden excitedly tells Quinlan how Emily was right, urging him to defeat the enemy. However, another giant creature emerges from the hole. Eden asks Quinlan to choose between the mole and the 4-eyed creature, but Quinlan opts for both, urging Eden to run. The 4-eyed creature wildly swings 4 swords, frustrating Quinlan, who quickly defeats the giant. The mole stands no chance. but Quinlan mentions another mole possibly reaching their cannon. If their team member presses the button to stop the cannon, they still win the test. Quinlan is unworried, confident in Eden's speed. The hole clearly connects to the starting point on the other side. So, Eden immediately entered the hole to head towards the enemy's cannon. Although he isn't good at much, his speed is unmatched by anyone. As Quinlan was speaking, the announcement came that Team A's cannon had been captured. It was Coon's team that won. But afterward, Coon still confronted Eden, questioning why he acted on his own based on advice from a chatbot. Eden then explained how amazing Emily is, mentioning she had even located someone thought to have been dead for hundreds of years. Despite this, Coon severely reprimanded him. Eden was just being hopeful, thinking that even if he made a mistake, his teammates would cover for him. After Coon's words, Eden realized his error and voluntarily asked Coon to keep his phone, resolving to no longer depend on Emily. Just as he walked out, he encountered Rachel, who immediately began to stir trouble and praised Eden's irreplaceable role in the team. She expressed envy of Mr. Eden's abilities and hoped he could be her legs. Meanwhile, Echen was desperately running away from a redhead who was chasing him, calling him "my little chick." The redhead didn't know Echen had the key. He chased Echen because he resembled a chick he once raised. When Echen saw the redhead's back turn towards the central treasure chest, he decided to make a last-ditch effort and dashed out of the bushes to insert the key. The next second, another enemy pulled him away. The redhead, feeling betrayed by Echen, released a burst of flames in anger. With limited abilities, Echen could only try to buy time by pretending to be the chick, convincing the redhead that his chick hadn't died and was right in front of him. The redhead was actually fooled. Just as Echen was about to use the redhead as a hostage, the redhead remembered something important. He had roasted the chick himself because he wanted to make roast chicken and wanted to do so again. He then threw 2 balls of fire at Echen. Thankfully, Bam arrived just in time, and Echen immediately sought protection. The redhead, seeing Bam, became even more aggressive, but was no match for him. Bam could control 5 balls of divine water and quickly overwhelmed him. Yihua and the others also arrived, leaving only one enemy capable of fighting, who unexpectedly surrendered and returned the key. However, he didn't believe he would lose to Bam and provocatively challenged Bam to a duel. If he won, Bam's team would have to forfeit the exam. Bam naturally declined without hesitation, not wanting to engage in pointless fighting. The old brother could only leave a few mocking words before taking the redhead and leaving. Echen cursed at their retreating figures, but thankfully they eventually won the exam. Surprisingly, the prize was just a few packs of dried squid. Mana took a pack and handed it to Han, their relationship resembling that of father and daughter. Echen is still furious. It seems they have become greedier now. 2 years ago they were grateful just to pass the 20th floor, but now they aim to keep ascending. With the workshop battle a few months away, Echen wants to reach the 30th floor beforehand and compete with others for items, hoping to win them. Meanwhile, Coon has to provide bedtime soothing services for Rachel at night. Though he changes his demeanor as soon as he leaves the room, he happened to see a message from Emily on Eden's phone asking how he was doing today. Coon picked up the phone and asked Emily a question. "Is Mr. Bam still alive?" Emily's answer was, "He is still alive." At the same time, a person nicknamed Traveler firmly believes Emily is human and has already planned to find her. Emily's response to him was, "I love you too. Emily must indeed be human." Kun finally learns that Bam is still alive. He immediately asks Emily where Bam is, but she doesn't know. Kun then asks her how she found out, to which Emily playfully asks if he's curious and sends a teasing emoji. This makes Kun suspect someone is playing a prank. Yet, who would do such a thing, or is Emily actually telling the truth? Hope stirs in his heart. Meanwhile, his teammate contacts him to report on the right arm demon investigation he requested. The suspect appeared in a photo uploaded to a platform and is now on the 28th floor. Coon decides to go and capture him. On the other side, Echen and his group also see the photo. He thinks the person looks like Horyang, who suddenly names the person in the photo as Kasalu. It turns out they are old acquaintances, both abandoned children from the Middle Zone, born in the same facility. Only the authorized families experts in the Middle Zone could have children. Others' offspring were abandoned. Horyang and Kasalu were sold as experimental materials for a workshop, subjected to human weapon experiments. They grew up there, meeting during that time. Kasalu, lively and confident, encouraged the introverted Horyang. They were closer than brothers. A young female teacher, a research assistant from the workshop responsible for their language education, showed them rare kindness and treated them like humans. She even gave them their names and became their first love. Unfortunately, their happiness was short-lived, as they were soon used as experimental materials and subjected to inhumane modifications. They were introduced to the workshop's lead researcher upon entering the device, who made them feel proud as only they, among nearly 100,000, were privileged to become living activation weapons. These weapons, integrated with the essence of the soul itself, were to be directly merged with living beings due to the limitations of weapons alone. The lead researcher implanted the demonic entity into both Horyang and Kasalu as he activated the device, causing them immense pain at 100,000 volts. They fell unconscious repeatedly and awoke in pain, eventually realizing their bodies had partly transformed into the integrated demons, gaining immense power but altering their minds and bodies. Their beloved teacher never appeared again. After the experiments, they remained in the facility, enduring daily agony until Horyang awoke one cold day to find he was being moved. It was then he first saw the ceiling of the tower, greeted by cold snowflakes, and realized the world held such beauty, sparking his determination to survive at any cost. Then he met the true master of the tower. After waking up again, he found himself inside the tower and had become a selected contestant. He climbed the tower relying on his strength, and people began to call him the right-arm demon out of fear. However, Horyang felt guilty about gaining power by sacrificing others and stopped climbing at the 20th floor. He then heard about someone on the 20th floor who looked like him and claimed to be the right-arm demon, but actually used his left arm. It was indeed Kasalu. Hearing this, Achen thought he had guessed what Horyang wanted to say and suggested they meet Kasalu since they were all now on the 28th floor. Before Horyang could respond, the group had already decided to set off the next day. Bam remained silent, reminded of his former companion Rachel. At that moment, Yihua brought a tray of charcoal, offering it as a midnight snack. It was actually painstakingly made rice balls with different flavors. Mana and the young master pretended to be asleep in fright, leaving the adults to reluctantly show their support. Bam got one, and it even contained a black takoyaki. Seeing everyone's pained yet helpless expressions, Bam couldn't help but smile. Echen captured this brief moment. Bam had indeed smiled. Bam went to the rooftop to find Horyang, who was indeed waiting for him. They got straight to the point with Horyang confessing that he decided to follow Bam because of the red skeleton he saw on him and wanted to know its true identity, suspecting Bam might be a living activation weapon like himself. He pressed Bam to reveal the truth, threatening to use force if he didn't speak, summoning the right-arm demon and swinging punches at Bam, even though they were teammates. Horyang needed to know the truth for the children sacrificed in the experiments. Moved by these words, Bam stood there making no attempt to dodge. Naturally, Horyang couldn't truly hit him. He just wanted to know the truth. Bam really didn't know. He only told Horyang what he knew. 7 years ago, he joined Fug. Shia said he could learn the way to become a god, to wield power that could change the world, or to forsake everything and follow his own path. Of course, they only gave Bam a part of that power. Later, Bam felt like he was sinking into the deep sea, and suddenly, a red light appeared before him, followed by severe pain in his body. Then he lost consciousness. When he woke up again, that thing was inside him. He didn't know how it related to Horyang's experiments, only that Fug had hidden the red light in the testing layer. After hearing Horyang's story, he felt some similarities with his own experiences. However, neither the destiny given to him nor this power was his choice. What he truly wanted was something he once had in his hands. Horyang completely let down his guard. In fact, he had already seen clearly that Bam was not the type to sacrifice others for power. They were all just victims. Thus, he wished that Bam would find what he truly wanted, then shouldered his backpack, ready to leave alone, even knowing it might be a trap. He didn't want to involve his companions. After entering the tower, the people Horyang met were no different from those in the workshop. They treated him as a monster while coveting his power, until he met Bam and the others, who genuinely treated him as a friend and family. Bam wanted to stop him, but Horyang disappeared in a puff of smoke. However, Bam didn't tell the others about Horyang leaving alone. Meanwhile, Coon and the others were also ready to depart. Suddenly, the team's chick came down with bird flu and had to stay at the base. The black brother volunteered to stay and take care of it, while Eden needed to look after Rachel. Ultimately, it was decided that Kun, Quinlan, and Rupi would go to hunt the demon. AG finally visited Rin's house as he wished. Rin first gave him a tour. After the tour, AG noticed that the junior high school girl still used formal language with him, so he told her not to be so formal. However, Rin was still not quite used to it. AG then joked about thinking of a punishment game, but said that could wait. What he really wanted to do was visit Rin's room, but Rin wouldn't allow it. Soon it was almost noon, and they decided to cook together. While cooking, Rin mentioned using formal language again, and when AG noticed, she tried to divert attention by complimenting his food presentation. AG blushed, saying he imagined himself as Rin's husband, and Rin naturally played along as a good wife. They playfully acted like a newly married couple. Rin wanted to make sauce, but they only had ingredients for a Western-style sauce. AG wanted both types, but Rin reassured him that they could make it next time. Then she tasted some sauce on her hand. AG wanted to taste it too, but Rin playfully turned into a little devil, scaring AG away. By evening, AG still hadn't left. Although Rin invited him to go out to see fireworks, he preferred to stay at home. Rin playfully insisted that she wanted her senior to see her in a yukata. AG couldn't refuse and was led by his girlfriend into her bedroom, as they could see the fireworks from her window without going outside. They sat on the bed in the dark, waiting for the fireworks. Rin leaned on AG's shoulder, and just as they were enjoying the moment, Rin's phone suddenly lit up. They separated quickly, fearing her parents might have come home early. Fortunately, it was Rin's best friend, returning with festival souvenirs. Rin wanted to continue their private time but couldn't leave her friend outside. She moved close to AG, intertwined their fingers, and kissed him gently. She had planned to wait for the fireworks, but now had to go downstairs prematurely to let her friend in. AG's expression showed that even without fireworks, the night was unforgettable. During the holidays, AG took a job delivering food. When his close friends found out, they immediately ordered from him. Knowing it was them, he joked about stealing some fries. The club president invited AG to come in and sit, but AG felt he could take a few more orders. His friends scolded him for not taking time off, making it impossible for them to hang out. AG was innocent, as he needed to save money. However, he couldn't resist his friends and took a break. Both wanted to go camping during the holidays. Although AG wanted to, he couldn't spend his hard-earned money on that, clearly saving for Rin. His friends, feeling left out, questioned why he was saving money. AG, blushing, said Rin's birthday was coming up. Since that's the case, the brothers should also support AG's work and let him buy another ice cream on his way. On the other hand, Rin looked at the clothes AG left at her house and couldn't resist wearing them like an obsessed fan. The next second, AG caught her in the act. Rin explained that the clothes had expressed a desire for her to wear them. AG played along, joking, "Little sister, can you actually hear what the clothes are saying?" He then started making up an ancient story, and Rin played along. After nearly a whole summer of effort, AG's summer thesis was still unfinished. He wished Rin was his classmate so she could help him with it. He then asked what play the drama club was performing for the cultural festival. Rin told him it was about two people who look alike but have opposite personalities switching lives and experiencing each other's school life. She handed him the script filled with her notes, and AG discovered that Tsundere-chan likes rabbits. As he read, AG felt unworthy of the attention from so many wonderful girls. Rin smiled warmly, saying, "We need to make everyone happy," and leaned across the table to face him. Rin's birthday was approaching, but AG hadn't decided on a gift yet. He thought Tsundere-chan would like something cute, maybe a Japanese dessert for Kudere-chan. As he pondered, AG suddenly realized it should be something Rin likes. On the first day of school, Rin's friends remarked on her improved beauty after the summer. A junior girl noticed the change in Rin's aura and asked if something happened during the vacation. The two seniors just smirked, saying it was too early for the little kitten to understand such things. Soon after school started, it was time for the sports festival. The drama club always prioritized the visual impact of their performances, so members ran in their costumes. Rin was dressed as a knight, and the junior as a fragile youth, who immediately captured the hearts of Rin's friends. The final event was a mixed-gender costume relay. Students ran vigorously in various costumes. Rin took the baton smoothly from a teammate, but tripped due to her high heels. She decided to run barefoot and quickly surpassed others with her impressive form, earning admiration from the junior, who then took the baton. Remembering another senior's comment that a fragile youth couldn't run, she immediately played the part, staggering forward and quickly getting overtaken by others, eventually collapsing on the track. Rin rushed over, only to find the junior laughing and asking how her portrayal of the fragile youth was. Rin was both amused and speechless. On Rin's birthday, Eiji gave her a bracelet and personally fastened it on her wrist after careful consideration. Rin immediately hugged him, promising to cherish it for a lifetime. She quickly turned playful, asking for another love-filled gift next time. To her surprise, Eiji refused because he now had eyes only for one person. Thinking she was being rejected, Rin was shocked until Eiji mentioned he would no longer be swayed by her playful or devilish sides. This revelation broke her defenses, unaware that Eiji was referring to her true self. Immediately played the part, staggering forward and quickly getting overtaken by others, eventually collapsing on the track. Rin rushed over, only to find the junior laughing and asking how her portrayal of the fragile youth was. Rin was both amused and speechless. On Rin's birthday, Eiji gave her a bracelet and personally fastened it on her wrist after careful consideration. Rin immediately hugged him, promising to cherish it for a lifetime. She quickly turned playful, asking for another love-filled gift next time. To her surprise, Eiji refused because he now had eyes only for one person. Thinking she was being rejected, Rin was shocked until Eiji mentioned he would no longer be swayed by her playful or devilish sides. This revelation broke her defenses, unaware that Eiji was referring to her true self. Immediately played the part, staggering forward and quickly getting overtaken by others, eventually collapsing on the track. Rin rushed over, only to find the junior laughing and asking how her portrayal of the fragile Coon saw the message, "You've been trapped," on the lighthouse display and heard the commotion inside, guessing that Rupi and Quinlan were already fighting. Meanwhile, Bam and the rabbit-eared girl were rushing over, while Horyang was digging through rubble to find Kasalu, whom Quinlan told not to waste his energy on as he was surely unable to stand. Angered, Horyang unleashed the demon residing in his right arm, clenched his fist, and charged. Rupi quickly deployed a protective shield, not expecting Horyang's punch to be powerful enough to shatter it, forcing him to dodge continuously and circle behind Horyang, attempting to stop him. Quinlan seized the moment to throw a spear of light, but Horyang blocked it and both rushed at each other. Coon had been controlling the battle situation, but suddenly a female teammate's name appeared on the screen. Meanwhile, Rupi was pushed back by Horyang, expecting a punch that stopped right before his nose because a red fist had pierced Horyang first. Surprisingly, it was his close friend Kasalu. Horyang, in disbelief and before he could question, fell into a pool of blood. Rupi and Quinlan were shocked by this sudden turn of events. Just then, Bam arrived with the rabbit-eared girl, mistakenly assuming they had killed their friend, their tone filled with anger. The girl then declared Horyang's death and provocatively claimed she saw through the lighthouse that it was their doing. Rupi tried to explain but couldn't, and Bam attacked without hesitation, unleashing 3 streams of divine water, while the girl used the lighthouse to block Quinlan's sneak attack. Rupi became cautious, recognizing that one was a wave controller and the other a lighthouse keeper, capable of controlling multiple streams of divine water. Unbeknownst to them, Bam could release more than just 3 streams. They decided to eliminate the lighthouse keeper first, rushing towards Bam. Rupi distracted Bam while Quinlan attacked the platform. Unexpectedly, 2 more streams of divine water appeared behind Bam, easily handling both attackers, showcasing strength beyond an E-rank participant's level. Rupi and Quinlan, already exhausted, aimed for a quick resolution. Rupi charged at Bam to halt his actions, but as they confronted each other, Quinlan unleashed lightning, only for the lighthouse to erect a barrier around Bam, blocking the attack. Then, divine water from behind Bam formed a barrage, shooting out and causing internal collapse, trapping Rupee and Quinlan. It seemed they were doomed. Bam approached, questioning why they killed Mr. Horyang, noting someone was waiting for him to come home. Because of them, the two would never see each other again. Rupee and Quinlan repeatedly denied involvement, insisting the real murderer was another right-arm demon inside. The rabbit-eared girl tried to stir the situation further when suddenly Coon entered, not recognizing Bam, though Bam recognized him. Coon wanted to run back to his teammates. However, the rabbit-eared girl suddenly pulled out a button and warned that if anyone took another step forward, everyone there would die. She had already placed bombs inside the giant hand. Bam then realized he might have been deceived. The nearby lighthouse signaled him not to act rashly, otherwise everyone would die. This was a message from Fug. Kasalu then stood up from the rubble, carrying Horyang. The lighthouse displayed a message. If you come with us, we will save this man. If not, you will lose two important friends. It turned out these two were with Fug. The rabbit-eared girl informed Coon that the person with her was Fug's reserve assassin. A few days ago, a mysterious person told her that someone who could become their god was about to arrive. Helping this person climb the tower would bring wealth and honor. The girl immediately understood the intent. They wanted them to help Bam eliminate anyone who might become an enemy of Fug in the future, specifically the strongest E-rank candidate, Coon. Thus, they planted a spy in Coon's team. By now, Coon had figured everything out. The information about the right-arm demon was all from those two teammates, aiming to deceive him and then kill him. Under these circumstances, Bam could not reveal his identity and openly stated his intent to kill Coon, setting a trap for him. However, he changed his mind, finding no pleasure in killing someone who fell for such a trap. Therefore, he decided to do nothing and just told Coon never to appear before him again. Sadly, Coon saw right through his poor acting. Realizing it was just meant to make him run away, Coon wanted to know the assassin's real purpose. A warm feeling passed through Bam's heart. He still admired Coon's intelligence, but he knew he could never reveal it. Suddenly, Rupee and Quinlan launched a surprise attack to seize the remote control, but were immobilized by Bam. Coon was momentarily stunned by this familiar move. Bam then agreed to go with the rabbit-eared girl and her group, warning that if they dared to play with his friends' lives again, they should not expect to survive. The girl was overjoyed and pressed the button without hesitation, and turned to Bam saying, "From now on, you are my god." The entire building began to shake violently, and the ground split rapidly, separating them. Coon watched as Bam and his group were enveloped by a giant golem. He remembered Emily saying that Bam was still alive. Could that man be Bam? On the other side, Coon's two traitorous teammates had taken control of the base. They had poisoned Jigay and tied up Eden. When they revealed they were working for Fug, Eden couldn't understand why Fug would target Coon. The female teammate didn't care about these details. Infiltrating Coon's team had been easy as they were exactly the type of talent Coon needed. She freely shared these secrets because she had already decided to kill Eden as well. Unexpectedly, Rachel, who was in league with them, pleaded for Eden's life, wishing to make him their ally. She even wiped the blood off his face, proposing he become her legs. Eden laughed in disbelief, having seen through her venomous nature. It was she who had commissioned Fug to kill Coon. Furious, Eden cursed at Rachel. Without a word, Rachel pulled out a dagger and stabbed him over 100 times, feeling that someone so ignorant had no right to speak. She believed she had done nothing wrong. When Ichin and his team arrived at the scene, they found only chaos. Coon and Bam's former teammates watched the incident on TV. Coon's name was the first listed among the victims. The news reported a FUG candidate assassin's crest and a message left at the scene, declaring it a sacrifice for the birth of a new assassin, presumably a warning from the candidate assassin Violet to those participating in the workshop battle. This incident has deepened the rift between Bam's former teammates and his current organization. The usually news-averse crocodile heard of Coon's death but refused to believe it, vowing to catch the liar. Meanwhile, Rupee and Quinlan awakened in the sky on a floating ship made of earth. They were taken away with others by Bam's group, while Coon was trapped in a giant hand, his fate unknown. Confronting a bunny-eared girl and a right-arm demon ahead, Rupi questioned their purpose. To his surprise, the girl said it was merely for publicity, aiming to become symbols of terror and worship, crafting a narrative fitting the birth of a new assassin. With Coon, a descendant of a powerful family presumed dead in the giant hand, the world would surely fear this legendary assassin, marking just the beginning. They planned to form the strongest team for the workshop battle and eliminate all E-rank candidates. Unable to bear their plot, Quinlan threatened to kill them on the spot, preventing their participation in the battle. However, as Quinlan and Kasalu charged at each other, Bam intervened, separating them with a move. He then communicated through a lantern, telling the bunny-eared girl he no longer wished to fight Kun's companions and asked them to cease. In return, he would join them in the workshop battle, but commanded that they come together. The girl had no choice but to invite them, following Bam's mood. Rupi and Quinlan were hesitant, but feeling Bam's care, they sensed he wasn't their enemy. Bam discreetly messaged them, insisting Kun was still alive, leading Quinlan to suspect a prior acquaintance between the two and decided to trust him for now. Thus, they formed a team. Coon, of course, was not gone. In his unconscious state, he pieced together clues, shockingly concluding that Viole was Bam. Awakening to Yihua's scream as she accidentally burned his bandages with her uncontrolled power, he saw Bam's current teammates arguing. He extinguished the flames himself, then took Echen hostage to question their identities. When Yihua asked if he knew Viole, Coon mistook them for Fug members and demanded Echen call all their companions. Observing them, he doubted they were truly Viole's teammates, seeming too ordinary for a candidate assassin's team. When Echen and his team reached the giant hand, they intended to rescue Bam and Horyang. However, they didn't find them, but detected Bam's pouch instead. Upon opening it, they discovered only Coon inside. Realizing that the group had no ill intentions, Coon admitted he knew nothing. He exchanged the pouch with Echen and was ready to leave. However, Han insisted that they take them along, citing the life-or-death stakes for their companion. Seeing their concern for Bam, Coon agreed to take them with him back to his luxurious base. Among them, Han seemed the most reliable. During Coon's unconsciousness, Han had already gathered intelligence on them and found that Han was quite capable. Yet, as someone from one of the 10 great families, Coon would naturally have an adversarial relationship with the candidate assassin Viole. Coon did not answer directly, but reassured them not to worry about Bam, having seen him alive and leaving. Upon returning to the base, Coon found only the bodies of Chicken and Eden, with Fug written on the wall. Chicken was dead, but fortunately Eden was still breathing. Echen quickly took him to the hospital, saving his life. Though Eden's legs were permanently damaged, Echen hurried to clarify that Bam was not responsible, which Coon already suspected was the work of that woman. Alone, Coon went to the rooftop to connect the dots. The pouch confirmed Bam's identity, as it was originally from Yuri, and the technique used was also Bam's. But if that was the case, why was Bam with Fug? Alive, but not with them. Coon was filled with thoughts. The shadow in front of him shifted between Bam and Viole. He asked who the other really was, and although Bam did not respond, Karen gave him a clear answer. Coon was shocked to see Karen, who had supposedly lost her qualifications during the test. She explained that as a guide, she could go anywhere, and participating in the test was just her job. She was now collaborating with Fug, and it was her plan all along because only non-regulars could kill Jaihead. They had faked Bam's death and transformed him into the candidate assassin Viole. Coon, growing angrier, attacked Karen, demanding to know where Bam was taken. Karen claimed ignorance, stating this was not her plan. The masterminds were Fug elders and several assassins interested only in power struggles. They wanted to manage Bam and place him in their chosen team. Hence, Karen felt betrayed too. Regardless of Karen's involvement, she asked Kun to join the workshop battle with Bam's current teammates and to win. This was a proposal from the other side. Whichever team won, Bam would join them. However, given the current team's strength, they couldn't possibly defeat Bam's team without Coon's brilliant strategic mind. Karen was confident Coon wouldn't refuse, especially now that he had lost everything, even his own team. At that moment, Echen called Coon downstairs because Aiden had woken up. His first words were to ask Coon to take him to the workshop battle. He wanted to seek revenge personally for his legs, which would never stand again. Rachel had spared his life just to see him in despair, but he refused to let her have her way. In fact, before meeting Coon, Eden had lost all his companions during the final test, and was the only one who fled due to his cowardice. At that moment, he thought his legs were utterly useless. Initially, he refused to join Coon because he feared losing more, which led him to flee from the tower. But now he realized that his legs were not meant for running, but for fighting. Eden's words moved Coon, and he agreed to Karen's proposal. He decided to lead his team into the workshop battle and win. After deciding to participate in the workshop battle with the underdogs, Coon introduced himself. He claimed to be Bam's companion and expressed his hope that everyone would join him in the battle. He told them that winning could bring Bam back to their side. Coon was sure they would not refuse. Unexpectedly, Echen spoke up and rejected the idea, pulling the others aside for a meeting. Everyone was puzzled by Echen's opposition, given that he was an elite member of one of the great families and should be grateful for his leadership. Despite everyone's original plans to join the workshop battle, and even Han thinking Kun's proposal was good, Echen felt that agreeing too easily would make them look weak. He used this as an excuse to leave and cool off alone, reflecting on his overwhelming desire to see Bam and to be his strength, which had driven him here. When he returned, Bam had already disappeared. Facing a wall that hindered his growth, Echen couldn't catch up to victory in the workshop battle. At this moment, Coon reappeared, humbling himself and asking Echen to team up again, promising he would not regret it. Echen wanted to know how they could win without Hor Yang and Bam, suggesting Coon should team up with stronger people. Coon was speechless at this refusal, even cursing under his breath, insisting his team could not lose, and their victory was certain. He was prepared to use any means necessary to defeat their opponents and make them beg for mercy. Even if they won, Bam's return was uncertain, but they had no other choice. Moved by Coon's words, Echen finally shook hands with him to form an alliance. Meanwhile, Hor Yang had just woken up and was about to confront Kasalu, who preemptively invited him to join the workshop battle, mentioning that Teacher Sophia was waiting. Fug's team for Bam was now complete, including Hunter Ripper, whom Bam disliked. Bam simply focused on preparing for the next test. At the same time, Echen and the others were undergoing Kun's rigorous training for a whole month without rest, turning them from underdogs into slightly less underdogs. Echen was so terrified that he begged for mercy on his knees. Fortunately, Coon finally let them go because they had a test the next day. In front of Eden, Coon admitted his own insecurity, assuming the others felt the same. Goseng stayed up discussing tactics with Emily, while Coon encouraged her to be confident. Mana voluntarily took on extra training, and since the young master couldn't rest alone, he joined him. Yua practiced fire control alone in her room, determined not to harm her teammates during the test, but her efforts were so noisy that Han couldn't sleep. By the next morning, everyone looked utterly exhausted. What could Coon say? He just let them sleep on the way. After the candidates left, Coon finally broke down, criticizing himself for poor self-care. How could I do this when Bam has endured so much in this team for years? Though he complained, Coon was genuinely worried about their exam performance. Eden went to buy him coffee. Coon, used to teaming up with powerful individuals, found leading this less skilled group his toughest challenge yet. Meanwhile, Coon's formidable teammates, Rupi and Quinlan, were feeling overshadowed. Despite disliking it, they had to admit this team stood out. They were also joined by Bam and Coon's former teammates for the workshop battle. Soon, Coon received the exam results. Echen and the others had passed on their own merit and qualified for the workshop battle. The next day, they took a floating car to the 30th floor. Echen, a big fan of Androsi, couldn't wait to meet her in person. Coon reminded him that they would be opponents, but Echen started fantasizing about a love-hate relationship with Princess Androsi. Coon, knowing Androsi well, could hardly bear to listen. On their way, they saw the Archimedes, one of the top 5 floating ships, where the workshop battle would take place. Coon noticed a sphere at the rear of Archimedes and wondered if it had always been there. Nobody else seemed to care. As soon as they disembarked, Echen and the others rushed to claim rooms. Coon remembered his promise with Karen. During the workshop battle, no one must know that he and Bam were still alive, including former teammates. Breaking this promise would nullify their bet. Coon wondered if his old friends would be sad to hear of his supposed death. Probably not. On the other side, Rupee and Quinlan shamelessly asked Bam to persuade the FUG to unlock their shackles. Bam agreed, but they continued to be monitored. Rapport instructed Bam to inform him whenever he left. After Rapport left, Bam asked Rupee and Quinlan to trust him. At this point, they had no other choice but to not assist the substitute assassins. That night, Bam stood alone on a rooftop, overlooking the city, knowing everyone was somewhere close. Suddenly he saw a man being chased into an alley. The pursuers left, but as the man dropped his phone and picked it up, calling out Emily's name, the chasers returned and surrounded him. Bam intervened and quickly dispatched the attackers. Expecting gratitude, Bam was stunned when the man yelled, "What are you doing?" Confused, Bam fled with the man. It turned out the pursuers were robots. Destroying them only triggered the deployment of stronger robots. Now in deeper trouble, the man chose to consult Emily first, then followed her directions to escape through the sewers. He also set up a jammer on the wall to evade patrols, explaining his actions and setting traps as they moved. Princess Androsi Jihad, who is receiving much attention, is currently being interviewed. When asked by a reporter why she decided to participate in the workshop battle, Androsi responded, "Do I even need a reason?" Her supporters immediately cheered. The reporter then asked if she had any particular opponents in mind, noting that Viole, a substitute killer from FUG, was also a seed player in this battle. Androsi boldly declared she would teach him a harsh lesson, stirring excitement not only among the audience at the venue, but also among Etchen and Eden, her die-hard fans. Coon, standing nearby, was indifferent, puzzled about what they found so appealing in her. Regardless, Etchen and Eden had become close friends and even planned to watch a movie together. Coon, however, had more pressing concerns. He pondered why all the participants were gathered here 2 days before the departure of the airship, suspecting some sort of plan was underway. Suddenly, the TV signal was lost, and a logo appeared. The person on screen, claiming to be one of the hosts of the workshop battle, announced a game to prevent boredom while waiting. This game allowed participants to win boarding passes to board the Archimedes, which was set to leave in 2 days. Essentially, this was a preliminary elimination round where winners could qualify for the workshop battle. The host began explaining the game, distributing a pistol to each contestant. There were only 248 boarding passes available. Defeating an ordinary person with the gun would secure a pass. Each person had only 1 bullet. A miss meant elimination. Alternatively, contestants could steal guns from others, with a maximum of 6 bullets per gun. After the first shot, a selector would activate, offering 2 modes. Light shots would teleport the hit person to the Archimedes, and the first person hit would receive the Blood Tamara. The one using light shots to send the most participants to the Archimedes would receive the White Heaven. Additionally, defeating a happiness sprite flying on the island would also secure a boarding pass and a super rare item. As the host counted down from 1 minute, Coon and his team quickly strategized. Dark shots were risky, while light shots were more certain. They decided it was best to shoot among teammates. Coon suggested starting by collecting bullets. Just as Etchen was about to look for a place to ambush, Coon pointed a gun at his forehead and said, "Goodbye, Etchen." As the countdown ended, a scream from Etchen echoed through the room. The people guarding outside rushed in only to find the room empty. The next second, they were all captured by Coon, who had circled behind them. Coon now had 2 bullets at his disposal. His earlier act was a ploy to use Etchen's scream to lure the enemies in. He hadn't told Etchen beforehand because he doubted Etchen's acting skills. Etchen was stunned, finding it exhausting to be part of Kun's team. At that moment, Goseng and 2 others contacted them. They were all right but couldn't reach the young master in Mana. Kun quickly thought of a plan and asked Etchen if he wanted to try something foolish. Other teams also took action at this time. As Hatch and his group ran, they blamed each other. Why did we rent a room so far away? And Androsi was missing. Just as they finished speaking, Androsi appeared in front of them, bringing 4 paparazzi with her. She confiscated their guns and bullets. The paparazzi were furious, accusing them. "The FUG members are staying in a nearby hotel. Why attack us ordinary people? We will leak this to the media." They even said they would side with Viole. Hatch couldn't remain indifferent. He directly asked them which hotel, then consulted his teammates on what to do next. As the number of boarding passes continued to decrease, no one could tolerate this humiliation. Indeed, they shouldn't have targeted ordinary people, but should hunt FUG. Just as they left, the paparazzi asked Androsi how their act was. Turns out it was Androsi's intention all along, just to make her teammates confront Bam. She also asked Emily where Bam was. At the same time, Bam's current teammates were asking the same question. Unable to find Bam, the lizard sister and her group came looking. They planned to collect some bullets first, but decided to rush in when fewer than 100 boarding passes remained. Now, Ripur and his group were surrounded, unable to find Bam and impossible to leave Bam behind. They could only hold their ground, both sides waiting for the moment when fewer than 100 boarding passes remained. Meanwhile, Bam was setting traps with a man he just met. The man introduced himself as Traveler. Bam told him his real name and asked why the patrol was chasing him. Unexpectedly, Traveler planned to sneak onto the Archimedes to save his beloved. Bam remembered Rachel. Traveler then said, he must rescue his beloved before the workshop battle ends, because the ultimate prize of this maker's battle is a human. As he spoke, a cutting sound came from ahead. Bam and Traveler immediately retreated. Sure enough, the patrol had caught up. Traveler turned and ran, but Bam stayed calm, ready to strike when the machine attacked. However, at the critical moment, Androsi broke through the wall. Seeing his old teammate, Bam's heart stirred, but it was clear she was coming for him. Before Bam parted ways with his teammates, he had a private conversation with Androsi. They enjoyed their time together, and Androsi even asked Bam to go on a date with her, requesting him to dedicate the entire day to her alone. Bam agreed without hesitation, and they planned to go on a date after their test. As Androsi was about to leave, she accidentally twisted her ankle. Bam quickly supported her and suggested she switch to more comfortable shoes. However, by the time they met again, they had become enemies. Androsi burst through the wall and quickly destroyed a robot with a few kicks, then held a gun to Bam's head, calling him by his current name. Assuming Bam would be a muscular man with long hair, she was surprised by his frail appearance. Bam did not want to show his face, and Traveler could not believe that Bam was the rumored Viole, thinking there might be some misunderstanding. As Traveler distracted Androsi, Bam used the divine water to lower the gun. Seizing the moment, Bam immobilized Androsi briefly and tripped her with a slide tackle. He grabbed the gun and ran to Traveler, telling him to throw all the anti-tank grenades he had. In the urgency, Traveler complied. Once the smoke cleared, Bam and Traveler had vanished. Furious, Androsi messaged her teammates, but felt she might have seen Bam for a moment. After escaping danger, the woman with them still did not believe Bam's true identity, thinking he could not be the bad guy. Since the patrol and Androsi did not follow them, they decided to part ways and agreed to meet on the Archimedes. Traveler had told Bam that the prize for the workshop station was a human, although the details were unclear. However, their immediate priority was to obtain the pass. Bam hurried to the hotel, while Etchen's old opponents, Red Hair and Scarface, had also begun their move. Han was about to leave with two girls when they were stopped by the duo. Scarface held a gun to Han's foot, demanding they drop their weapons and surrender. Then Etchen's voice came from behind. He had captured Red Hair as a hostage. It was now a question of who was quicker on the draw. Coon arrived late, revealing that everything was part of his plan. Known to them, even Scarface, who couldn't understand why such a big shot would associate with weaklings, was puzzled. Coon only offered them two choices: end the game or hand over all their bullets and be sent up to the Archimedes using luminous bullets. They could also choose neither, in which case neither party would have the advantage. Eventually, Scarface chose the second option. After sending them to the Archimedes, Goseng hurriedly mentioned that young Master and Mana were missing. Coon decided not to worry about it, reasoning that if they couldn't handle this minor issue, they couldn't win the workshop battle. He asked others to trust them and go up first. Han was the first to stand by Coon, so Coon shot him up there. Meanwhile, young Master and Mana were entangled by a giant octopus controlled by a little girl. She fancied them as a couple and wanted to turn them into her own dolls and have them marry. After setting her plan in motion, she left to meet up with her teammates. Elsewhere, Bam and Coon's former teammates finally began their move, preparing to attack the hotel where Viole was staying. Inside the hotel, Rapport was anxiously waiting for Bam and was nearly frantic. At that moment, the spear wielder across from them made a move, shattering a window and boldly invading the hotel, where she was met by Quinlan. Kasalu's opponent was Hatch, with whom he was already well acquainted. The battle hadn't started yet, when the rabbit-eared girl finally contacted Bam. Bam said he was on his way back and learned from her that enemies, including Androsi and her companions, had arrived at the hotel, complicating his feelings as his former and current teammates were now confronting each other. On his way, a group of reckless foes tried to stop him, but an anxious Bam broke through directly. By this time, Anak and Quinlan had already started fighting. Quinlan didn't really want to fight. It was just his sarcastic tone that provoked Anak, who had a quick temper. As a result, the onlooking Rupee ended up getting beaten. Below, Hatch and Kasalu also began their fight. Hatch had lost to Kasalu before and sought to redeem himself. Only a few rounds into their fight, Kasalu's right arm had a bloodstain, and with every exchange, the wounds increased. Since his defeat, Hatch had intensified his training, while Kasalu didn't believe that mere training could lead to victory and charged again. Hatch then aimed for his arm and chopped upwards. Countless sword swings were bound to have an effect. He wanted his sword to be sharper than the right arm demon, the humanoid weapon. Eventually, Hatch raised his sword to Kasalu, questioning why the strongest weapon was with Fug and what he hoped to gain from the workshop battle. Kasalu responded off-topic, only admiring the sword that grew stronger with its master. Just then, Bam finally rushed back to the hotel. Meanwhile, Kasalu's left arm underwent a mutation, shattering Hatch's sword and drawing a pistol aimed at his head, leaving with the words, "See you in the workshop battle." Above them, Anak was surrounded by thunderclouds. Quinlan, hidden within the clouds, used them to distract Anak. As she threw her spear, he leapt from the window, aiming a gun at her. Unexpectedly, Anak did a backflip behind him. Now both were pointing guns at each other when Bam appeared, holding a gun and shouting, "Stop, everyone!" The little girl got so obsessed with shipping characters that she did something unthinkable to the underage boy and girl. She knocked Mana and the young master unconscious, then put couples' flower crowns on them. Just looking at that scene made her feel so happy. Etchen, hiding behind the wall, was speechless. He asked Coon what to do, but Coon told him to figure it out himself, since he was the one who insisted on rescuing them. Just before, Coon had sent their teammates away on a boat, but Etchen refused to leave, even threatening Coon to stay. Coon only gave him one piece of advice: sometimes trying to protect everything ends up losing everything. Though he said that, he understood why Bam chose Etchen as a teammate, and eventually compromised. He was only responsible for finding them. The rest was up to Etchen to handle. When he found them, he was stunned because he recognized the little girl as one of Chivis's people. He quickly stopped Etchen, then ran over himself. Unexpectedly, a crocodile was right behind him. Meanwhile, as Quinlan and Anak were fighting fiercely, Bam suddenly appeared and shot them both. As he was leaving, Anak tried to kill Bam, but his body disappeared first, though Rupee stayed behind. He told Bam that things had become a mess here, curious why he also sent away the green lizard. Just then, the rabbit-eared girl sent a message saying their hotel had been invaded by two people, Civis and Little B. Knowing Civis, Bam understood they wouldn't rashly invade without a backup plan. So, he whispered a few words to Rupee, then rushed to the lobby. Little B and Bam's current teammates had already started fighting, while Civis was waiting for the right moment. Just when they were about to succeed, Bam suddenly appeared and rescued his teammates. First, he tore a piece of cloth to cover his face. Then he attempted to negotiate with the opponents. Fighting here was no good for anyone. It would be better if they could just leave. However, Civis stated they had no interest in workshop battles. Their purpose was to capture him. After saying this, a teammate hidden in the shadows suddenly blew a divine water on Bam, and a ring appeared on his finger. This ring absorbed the divine water he used and transported it to the underground through an octopus, making the power of the divine water ineffective. Bam tried it, and indeed, the ring could not be removed. Then another strong teammate of Civis appeared, determined to capture Violet. 3 of them surrounded Bam, but they overlooked Bam's masked teammate. Little B, frustrated, knocked him out with one hit, while Civis's strong teammate seemed to be a boxer, with fast and powerful punches and very high defense. A punch from Bam barely scratched him, and the next second, he grabbed Bam and threw him away. Just as Little B was about to deliver the final blow, the masked teammate threw himself in front of it, the needle coated with poison. If the honey from Little B's hand was not applied within 5 minutes, the venom would spread throughout the body and be fatal. Bam, emotionally conflicted, finally activated the mysterious power within him and knocked the boxer down with one punch. When Little B tried to ambush him, he instantly subdued the honey sting. Both parties paused temporarily. Civis began brainstorming. Since the opponent's abilities were still unclear, continuing the fight would be disadvantageous. Should they give up this opportunity? Surprisingly, Bam had no intention of killing them. He only demanded the honey and bullets to release them. If refused, he would abandon his teammates and shoot the man onto the boat. He was confident that Civis would not abandon his teammates, and indeed, Civis did just that, reluctantly handing over the honey to Bam after bargaining to deactivate the ring only after Bam used the light bullets on the boxer. Meanwhile, Etchen was puzzled about what the girl was doing and why the giant octopus suddenly began glowing. As Coon hurried towards him, advising Etchen to find a way to deal with the adversary, they encountered Horyang, who had left the group but seemed not to notice him. The little girl received a communication from Civis. Before retreating, Horyang arrived first. Civis instructed him to avoid confronting the man and to quickly retreat to board the Archimedes. Seeing his teammate arrive, Etchen appeared and demanded the girl return the young master and Mana, but she left with them on the octopus. With no other choice, Etchen shifted his focus to Horyang, inquiring where he had been, receiving only indifferent responses. Everyone who should be on the boat was now aboard. Previously, Bam had instructed Rupi to use the bullets to send his teammates up. Having spent some time together, Rupi knew Bam was not a bad person and even worried about his condition, given the immense pressure he carried. Bam mentioned that his life had no further meaning anyway, and it was urgent to board the Archimedes, unaware that Coon overheard their entire conversation from hiding. After regrouping, Civis reflected that he had underestimated Viole, which led to their well-prepared plan failing. However, it wasn't a problem, as there would still be opportunities once aboard. They then helped each other send teammates off. Now, only 9 spots remained on the boat, with Coon, Etchen, a suddenly appearing crocodile, and Androsi, who had been duped in the ruins, cursing at Viole. When she saw Traveler attempting to escape, she seized him to inquire where Viole had gone. Traveler claimed not to know Viole, having just been with a man named Bam, which left Androsi stunned. Finally, everyone who needed to be on the boat was aboard, and the workshop battle officially commenced. The organizers aimed to profit from this event, featuring renowned participants like the substitute slayer Viole, the immensely popular Princess Androsi, the strongest E-rank Mad Dog, and creations like White Heavenly Mirror and Blood Tamara. The spectators on the boat could also place bets, ensuring a profitable event for the organizers, who needed a script to make money. The man in the suit was specifically hired to manage the event, while the other 2 focused on research, their subject being Emily, who many relied on. Life on the Archimedes is quite comfortable. Civis leered at a beautiful girl passing by, almost getting his waist kicked in by Anak the next second. They also encountered many old acquaintances on the ship. Civis's team wasn't doing well. Hatch's sword broke, and a boxer teammate was injured. Fortunately, Androsi caught the intruder at the last moment, who was allowed on board without a ticket after an interview. Androsi just finished an interview when she saw Bam and his group. The audience is eagerly anticipating a showdown between Princess Androsi and the substitute slayer. When asked by a reporter about facing him in the eliminations, Androsi didn't answer and walked away, preoccupied with the realization that Viole is Bam. After capturing Traveler, she handed him over to the guards without hesitation. In desperation, Traveler knelt and pleaded to be taken aboard, claiming Emily would die without him. The guards thought he was delusional, questioning how an app could die. Traveler insisted Emily wasn't just an app, but an orphan who saved his life, and she was on the ship. Androsi was overwhelmed by these revelations, unaware that her former teammates had already met. Crocodile immediately called Aishen a turtle son, a nickname that hadn't changed. Coon reassured him, explaining that Crocodile is just bad at remembering names. Etchen trusted Coon with Crocodile, who surprisingly knew a lot, including Rachel's betrayal and Bam's survival. Information Karen told him, even though Coon was advised not to share it. Meanwhile, Etchen and others started eating deliciously. During their meal, Coon was suddenly kicked out and argued with Crocodile, who urged him to bring Bam back and not overcomplicate things. Coon insisted on staying put for Bam's sake, which Crocodile disliked, leading to a heated argument. Only Etienne, bringing desserts to the rooftop, found Coon. Although they fought upon meeting, Etienne could tell they were close friends. Coon tends to take on too much because of his childhood experiences, feeling uneasy whenever he acquired a precious gem, hiding it instead of wearing it. Etienne encouraged him not to hide this time but to share with everyone, leaving the friends together. Crocodile brought a chocolate bar, genuinely happy upon learning Bam was alive. Hearing that they could meet Coon here made it seem like the three could climb the tower together. However, Coon had other ideas. Although Crocodile isn't very smart, his simplicity sometimes enables him to get along with the clever ones. Coon then revealed his plan. They couldn't acknowledge Bam until after they defeated Fug in the workshop battle, won the prizes, and reclaimed Bam. After hearing this, Crocodile laughed heartily, saying, "As expected, the turtle son hasn't changed." Confident in his own plan, Coon was determined to reclaim Bam in tomorrow's elimination round using even more underhanded tactics than FUG. Meanwhile, Hatch, holding his phone, arrived at the workshop and unexpectedly bumped into Kasalu and Horyang at the entrance. He immediately hid and quietly followed them into a room where Horyang's beloved teacher, Sophia, stood. Overcome with emotion, Horyang burst into tears and embraced Sophia, who comforted him by stroking his head as she had done before. Outside, Hatch was utterly baffled and was soon discovered. Outnumbered, he was captured and thrown into a dark room. The man who found him, wearing a hood, was called a brother to Horyang and Kasalu by Sophia. She then showed them her research, a massive machine named Emily, which she claimed could become a powerful weapon that would shake the tower once awakened. The day of the workshop battle finally arrived, with all the participants gathered. Bam was stopped by a dark-skinned young boy who claimed his family had fallen because of the 10 great families and believed Lord Violet would avenge them. Uninterested in such matters, Bam was relieved when a bunny-eared girl comforted him, asking if she also harbored hatred towards Jaihead and the 10 families. She denied it, stating her help was merely for her own benefit, which relieved Bam, glad she hadn't suffered. With just a few words, he captured the heart of the beautiful girl, and even Rupee, a former rival, remarked that Bam had a glow that would make people follow him anywhere. As the host explained the rules, the audience became excited. The first stage of the workshop battle involved capturing a flag, with the first 3 of 8 participants to place their flags in a hole declared winners. Dropping the flag or letting it fall out of the arena would disqualify the participant. Although it was an individual battle, it wasn't just about winning. Team leaders had to gamble like gamblers in the game, with only the top 6 scorers advancing to the final elimination round. Thus, it was both an individual and a team battle. The first group to appear included Etienne and Han, and to everyone's relief, Mana and the young master were also safe. Now that the team leaders had placed their bets and the participants had arrived at the venue, Etienne and Han eagerly stepped out, only to see the young master in a sailor suit, bruised and battered. The first thing they said was for both to run away because Mana had gone mad. The young master and Mana woke up wearing sailor uniforms. The little girl was very pleased with her creation and immediately demanded once again that they become her dolls, believing that despite their weakness, their willingness to protect each other made them perfect as a couple of dolls. The young master was taken aback, considering Mana was still a child. However, the girl claimed that becoming dolls would make them stronger, even suggesting they could win in workshop battles. She then gave them 2 small red flowers, instructing them to wear them and chant "Long live Lord Baird" 3 times to awaken their powers. Naturally, the young master dismissed this as nonsense and knocked the flowers away. But after the girl left, Mana picked up the flowers, wore them, and recited the phrase 3 times. She immediately changed, feeling a surge of power but losing her sanity in the process. This prompted the young master to urge Etienne and Han to flee. The frenzied Mana, now carrying a flag, patrolled the arena. 2 clueless challengers thought she was the weakest and attacked her, only to be sent flying by her incredible strength, which even Han admired. Sivis was certain of their victory. Etienne quickly picked up the young master to understand the situation. The young master explained that the flowers caused Mana's loss of self. Just then, Mana knocked another contestant out of the arena and turned her attention to them, charging like a beast. Luckily, they dodged in time. Echen quickly thought to remove the flowers to see if Mana would return to normal. The young master couldn't guarantee it, but Han decided to proceed, criticizing the young master for his timidity, comparing him to the child who once hid behind his father. Provoked, the young master, wanting to prove his bravery, took the lead. When Mana charged, he attempted to control her but was knocked down by her. As Mana raised her flag again, Echen shielded him, caught by Han just in time. Now, the young master was the only one left to fight. He raised his own flag, confronting Mana directly, and shot a purple beam, entangling her flag. Proud of his independent strength, he took the opportunity to lecture Mana on the perils of reliance and even mentioned her abandonment by her parents. Mana paused, breaking free from the beam in shock. In that moment of distraction, Han swiftly removed the flowers from her head and praised the young master. Mana then collapsed into the young master's arms, her fear of abandonment lingering. She pleaded for them not to leave her. The young master, showing rare tenderness, assured her they were going nowhere, as Mana still needed a guardian. Eventually, they planted the flag, concluding the first round of the competition with only Echen, Han, and the young master qualifying. The first round was just for the audience to understand the rules. Next, 5 groups will compete at the same time. Before the next match, Echen and the others looked towards Bam. The young master boldly declared in public, "You're next." Even if it meant dragging him, they intended to bring Bam back. Echen was much calmer, merely telling Bam, "I will be the one to defeat Fug." Bam's eyes lit up at this. Ever since Mana fainted, she hadn't woken up. This continued until a little girl came and told them that the child had just been unable to control her newfound power and was otherwise fine. She was deeply moved by how the young master risked his life to awaken Mana and insisted he reconsider becoming a doll, which the young master naturally refused. The next matchups were also announced. Group 4 included Horyang and Goseng, Group 5 had Yiwa and Red-Haired, and Group 6 featured Civis's most concerned fighter, the Hell's Hound Bolagapo. The 5 groups began their matches simultaneously. Goseng was not good at fighting, but luckily, Horyang was with her in her group to protect her. This made the scarred man feel uneasy, but he had no plans to attack these two. His red-haired teammate was already setting fires with excitement. Red-haired was paired with Yihua, who was also skilled in fire manipulation, but Yiwa was no longer reckless with her flames. Red-haired didn't want to argue with her, focusing instead on watching Bolagapo's battle. Seeing his robust body, other competitors didn't dare approach him. They just watched as he walked towards the flag planting area. Finally, a man as muscular as Bolagapo stood in his way. However, Bolagapo did not stop his steps and only reminded him as they passed by not to waste his life. The man, unwilling to give up, barely moved before his head exploded without even touching Bolagapo, who then planted his flag without hindrance and turned his gaze towards Bam on the stage. Bam remembered what Ripoor had told him. Bolagapo was once a fighting dog raised by one of the assassins, Lord Yanwang, to showcase the strength of these warriors. Lord Yanwang sent 3 young fighting dogs as test subjects to the exam, and Bolagapo was one of them. Shortly after gaining the title of the strongest in Class E, he suddenly stopped climbing the tower, severed ties with Fug, and began to hate Fug, killing all the test subjects associated with it. Thus, his purpose here was to kill Bam. Meanwhile, after being locked in a dark room, Hatch easily broke free and quickly asked Emily how to escape. Emily directed him to look under the bed, where there was surprisingly a door. At the same time, the atmosphere in the arena heated up even more as it was finally Bam's turn to compete. Bam didn't want to waste time fighting others, but as soon as he entered the arena, a group of people surrounded him to protect him. These people claimed to be his followers and wouldn't let anyone interfere before he planted his flag. However, the astute audience had already seen through this act. They were merely showing themselves as Bam's companions to deter others from attacking. Unfortunately, Bam was not appreciative. After all, he could easily pass on his own power and did not want to be exalted in such a manner. When one person insisted they were a devotee, Bam even knocked them away, publicly declaring that he was not a convenient deity who could fulfill their wishes. He then smoothly planted his flag. Above them, Anak saw his face clearly once again and ran to tell Androsi. He indeed resembled the guy who died on the second floor. Androsi also checked Violet's background and found all his data had been deleted, deepening her suspicions. She wanted to confront him directly, but Fugue's people were always by his side, preventing her from getting close. However, she might get a chance at the party after the individual match. The bunny-eared girl was upset because of what Bam had said publicly, as she too was a devotee needing Bam to fulfill her wishes. Rupi and Quinlan were also watching covertly. They were not truly Bam's teammates, and had always stayed on the fringe of the team. Now what intrigued them most was why Fug risked exposing Bam's past by letting him participate in the workshop battle. Just then, they brushed past a hooded man. Quinlan immediately realized that this guy was not human. Little did they know, Bam would soon confront the hooded man. The final match was approaching. Out of the 26 groups, 48 people had already qualified, who would receive the last ticket to enter. The host soon announced the last 3 groups. Anak and Quinlan found themselves in the same group again, planning to settle things once and for all. The final match of the first round has finally arrived. Anak and Quinlan were both scheduled for this game. The team captains mainly placed their bets on these two. Their skills are evenly matched, but they are like water and fire, so it's likely that only one will advance. However, Sivis and Coon placed all their bets on this outcome. Just after placing the bet, they spotted another old acquaintance, Boreku, who had also appeared here. Just after some tough talk, they saw the players charging towards this area, except Anak and Quinlan, who were still standing motionless in confrontation. Etchen asked Scarface who he thought would win. Scarface analyzed that Anak was definitely stronger, but Quinlan excelled in technique, so it was hard to say who would lose. At that moment, Quinlan proposed to the referee to change the rules. No one else could interfere. He wanted a one-on-one duel with Anak, arguing that their abilities were much higher than the other players present, and that a duel would be better for everyone. The audience cheered on. The referee then asked for Anak's opinion. Naturally, Anak wouldn't refuse. With everyone's support, they were granted the right to duel. Quinlan quickly popped something resembling a pill into his mouth, but Anak didn't give him a chance to swallow it and charged forward. Quinlan was caught off guard and pushed back, but he managed to swallow the pill. A cross pattern appeared on his face, and his body emitted electricity. With a casual raise of his hand, fierce lightning struck Anak, who quickly dodged. How can he release so much electricity at the start? Anak thought as Quinlan appeared behind her, already brewing a light ball in his hand. The massive shockwave nearly swept across the battlefield, and Anak was caught in it. It's hard to imagine they were E-grade competitors given their strength. Luckily, Anak dodged quickly, but Quinlan's fist followed immediately. As soon as the distance closed, she threw a punch, but Quinlan blocked it with his foot, then quickly kicked again. Anak jumped to dodge but was kicked in the chin. Not expecting to be at a disadvantage from the start, Anak retaliated, but Quinlan's speed was too fast, and his power had increased. Anak was completely suppressed. It turned out that Quinlan had eaten a Leydan, a highly concentrated elixir with electrical properties. The Leydan's electricity reacted with his body, bursting forth with power. If one wasn't suited, they could die from it. This was a secret technique available only to the chosen ones in his family. The cross on his face was just a watermark. Although powerful, the Leydan could only last 5 minutes, after which his body would be greatly exhausted and he couldn't even walk normally. Quinlan even told Anak this, just to prove he could finish her in less than 5 minutes. This arrogant attitude enraged Anak, who then unleashed a flurry of punches at Quinlan. Little did she know this was exactly the trap Quinlan had set. He quickly seized the opportunity and shot an electric wave at Anak's chest, pushing her back once more. At this point, she had no choice but to use her own elixir. Sivis, watching from the sidelines, realized Quinlan's intention. He wanted to stop Anak, but was powerless. Anak only needed to keep running for 5 minutes to secure a win, but Quinlan's provocation led her to retaliate. Now, Anak was continuously struck by Quinlan, with electric waves even piercing through her body. Meanwhile, Bam met a hooded man who introduced himself as Beta, a living weapon just like Bam. He hinted that Fug had brought him here with a hidden agenda, and Bam would soon find out. After a fierce attack, Quinlan threw Anak onto the stage and declared her defeat before turning to leave. Unexpectedly, Anak stood up again, stating she didn't run, not because of pride, but because she couldn't. She then charged at Quinlan again. This time, after being pushed back, she didn't attack immediately, but instead smashed the ground, breaking the entire platform. Both fell into the water, determined to fight to the death. As they both exhausted their strength, the outcome became unclear. However, Anak suddenly smiled, provoking Quinlan to attack. They recreated their previous positions and punched simultaneously from opposite sides, only for Boriku to suddenly appear and send them both flying, resulting in both strong competitors being eliminated. After Beta left, Bam asked Emily what the prize for winning the workshop battle was. Emily replied it was the living weapon, Violet. On the other hand, Hatch, after escaping a dark room, didn't know where he was. Suddenly, a mechanical giant crab appeared. Without his sword, he was no match for it, and picked up a steel pipe instead, hypnotizing himself into believing it was the strongest sword at that moment. He charged at the crab, stabbing the pipe into its core, stopping its movement. Then, a patrolling guard suddenly appeared, preventing the crab from self-destructing. To Hatch's surprise, the guard was Renault, an old acquaintance. Although puzzled by his appearance, Hatch asked how to leave. Before Renault could answer, he received a message that a party was about to start and guards needed to assemble in the hall. He then asked Hatch for a favor, to stop the creation of the ultimate evil weapon. The first round of the competition concluded, leaving Etchen almost in despair since even Coon was eliminated. Scarface consoled him, suggesting joining another team since he had already passed. But Etchen refused, choosing to believe Coon had other plans. For now, he decided to admire Princess Androsi's beauty. Just as things seemed calm, the crocodile began furiously beating his subordinate Boriku. Having lost, they decided to go directly to FUG to take Bam away. Civis was also eliminated. As the team leader, they had placed their bets incorrectly. Unexpectedly, the host approached. Coon, who had also lost his bet, raised doubts, pointing out that Anak and Quinlan's fight was different from the others. Boriku was already out at that time, and his intervention broke the rules. Therefore, the bet should be invalid. Surprisingly, the host agreed and allowed them to propose new rules for the elimination round, called the developmental elimination match. Meanwhile, Androsi, in disguise, was tracking Bam, but lost him because Bam went to meet Beta, following Emily's instructions. He wanted to ask about the ignition weapon inside him. Beta told him that the thorns inside them were merely replicas. The real one was in the workshop arena. FUG planned to install it in him if he wanted. He could just steal it. On the other hand, Coon, disguised with a mask, returned to the dorm and informed his teammates about the developmental elimination match. Simply put, 8 teams would compete in this match, and the winning team would face the winner between the Mad Dogs and Fugue to determine the final victor. Points earned during the match would help the teams grow and advance. Coon had already decided that Ichin would be their team's vanguard. It was then that they noticed the crocodile was missing because he had actually gone to find Bam. Unexpectedly, he ran into Androsi on the way. While both were puzzled, Bam also appeared. Tears instantly welled up in the crocodile's eyes as he threw himself into Bam's arms. Since Bam's faked death, Crocodile had been immersed in pain every day. Now reunited with his good brother, his eyes immediately filled with tears, unwilling to let Bam go again. Androsi, aware of Bam's unspeakable troubles, forcibly dragged Crocodile away, reminding Bam not to forget to ask her out when he returned. Meanwhile, the party went ahead as scheduled. Hor-Yang, rarely dressed in a suit, saw Goseng in her elegant attire, and both blushed upon meeting. The young master tactfully took Mana aside to eat, allowing Goseng to invite Hor-Yang to dance. Goseng now knew that Hor-Yang had endured much pain, so she regretted saying she would give up the exam in front of him. Hor-Yang shared his encounter with teacher Sophia, who continued her research, seemingly having created a living ignition weapon. He also asked Emily and could no longer deny that he and Kasalu were experimental subjects of teacher Sophia, realizing that the love she showed them was a lie concocted for her research. Pain filled Hor-Yang's heart, but Goseng held his hand for comfort, reminding him that he now had true companions. So, after this elimination round, he planned to return to them. On the other side, Bam knew that Rupi had distracted Fuji's people, allowing his former teammates to leave smoothly. Thus, he informed Rupi that he would leave the team during tomorrow's elimination round. The next day, the decisive workshop battle and group elimination round began. The Mad Dog team and FUG team competed on the north side, while the other 8 teams participated in a growth-type elimination round on the south side. In this round, teams' vanguards collected points, summoned teammates, and bought items. Defeating another team's vanguard allowed progression to the next round. With players ready, they had 30 minutes post-match to move to the combat area. At the host's signal, Achin swiftly advanced, communicating remotely with Coon, who believed their main rivals were 2 masked individuals. To avoid an early confrontation, Coon directed Achin to take a detour. Meanwhile, Civis was in a complex mood. Last night, neither Androsi nor Anak had spoken to him, though Anak at least warned him about Viole. Fortunately, the little bee performed well, quickly eliminating an enemy. The host then moved north to explain the rules for the Mad Dog team versus FUG team. In the central temple on the island, the key to the hidden victory prize was enshrined. FUG was attacking, Mad Dog defending. Bam, walking with Rapport, sought to learn more about Bolagapo, one of the 3 Mad Dogs created by Lord Yan, designed to gain extraordinary strength by combining the blood of 2 powerful beings. Rapport suggested clearing the minor foes first, then collectively dealing with the Mad Dog. However, Bam planned to catch the Mad Dog alone quickly. As the host announced the start of the match, Bam instantly rushed out. At the same time, Achin was about to enter the combat area, urging Coon to quickly summon teammates. As soon as they entered, they encountered a robotic assistant who explained how to summon teammates. The assistant led Achin to the summoning spring, where summoning teammates only required using points, and even those who were eliminated could be summoned. Coon immediately thought, if FUG loses to the Mad Dog team, could they also summon Bam? However, he decided to stick to the plan and summon Blitz first. The next second, their vigilant opponents appeared. With time pressing, Achin shouted Blitz's name at the summoning fist, but it would take 5 minutes for the summoning to succeed. During this time, Achin had to fend for himself. Meanwhile, Bam had his own plans for this elimination match. Last night, Beta told him that FUG had sent 3 gamblers to infiltrate the workshop battle, planning to kill all of Bam's teammates during the fight with the Mad Dog. The only way to stop them was to steal the spike. After speaking, Beta gave Bam a key. Now Bam planned to go there alone. He wanted to discover the hidden truths of the workshop battle and find a way to return to his teammates. With this in mind, Bam did not hesitate to use the key to open the door, while Rapport, trying to follow him, was stopped by Rupee. Rapport immediately realized that Bam and Rupee had teamed up with the Mad Dog. The gentle big sister with wings on the Mad Dog team, who was an acquaintance of Anak's, had approached Anak the previous night, offering to help her with her revenge. Anak took the opportunity to ask for her help. Then, the big sister approached Rupee, saying a friend of Viole had a message for him. If he left the team, the Mad Dog might assist them a bit. Thus, letting Rapport and his team be eliminated here, and Bam returning to his original teammates, was the best choice. Of course, they also needed to steal the spike. On the other side, Achin was desperately dodging attacks from twins while Coon was busy looking for a breakthrough. Suddenly, he had an idea and told Achin to run past the 2. Achin quickly did so, and the attack soon stopped. It turned out that these 2 were from a mysterious tribe whose members could split their bodies in 2. So these twins were actually one person, and the other half of the body was just for show. Therefore, when Achin moved into their blind spot, they couldn't react instantly. Achin then got behind them and defeated each child, leading his team directly into the semifinals. Red-haired Blitz was successfully summoned, but his presence was no longer needed here. Soon, Han, Yiwa, and Crocodile also arrived, with Crocodile and Kun still concerned about Bam's situation. Bam has arrived in front of the prize. Beta appears soon after and tells Bam, "This huge cocoon is the legendary spike that can kill kings. A long time ago, a non-chosen entered the tower and killed an administrator, breaking the absolute rule that administrators are immortal. This spike was found at the scene where the administrator was killed. Therefore, FUG believes it to be the weapon that can kill Jaihead. However, they cannot use it as it has died. To use this weapon shell, FUG and the workshop scientists collaborated. They transferred ownership of the spike and supported the research fully. Consequently, the workshop began abducting children from the middle area for human experiments. this plan has been in preparation for a very long time. There's a large crowd around Rupi, but Ripur isn't afraid to tell him the secret. After all, it's they who have fallen into the trap. The workshop has successfully turned humans into living activators. Why so obsessed with a living activator? Because they obtained a demon capable of activating the spike, which resides in Bam. Beta says it seems to be a demon capable of rivaling gods. Thus, the research aims to give Bam the power to activate the spike. Hence, Bam is the actual prize of this workshop battle. Immediately after speaking, Beta summons divine water tentacles that firmly bind Bam. Meanwhile, Rupi meets the big sister who passed the message last night. It turns out they were with Fyug from the beginning, and their earlier actions were just a performance to trap Bam. After speaking, the big sister orders Rupi's execution. Unexpectedly, Horyang appears to help at the critical moment. Outnumbered, they quickly flee. Rupi briefly explains the situation to Horyang. Then another Fyug teammate appears ahead, but this one, previously saved by Bam, doesn't seem to be blocking them. However, Bam's body has already been pierced by Beta. Bam fell into the enemy's trap again. Pierced by Beta and tightly bound, he had no chance of escape. Beta had been waiting for this moment to make all the sacrifices for Bam, yet this kid only thought of his happiness. It's all Bam's fault that Emily is still asleep, calling out to travelers. So Beta declared he would kill all of Bam's companions and then cast him into darkness, just like Rachel once did. Meanwhile, Blitz and his team noticed Archimedes was on the move. The top 4 in the knockout competition were now clear. The host announced the results from the Northern Arena first. Mad Dog team withdrew, and Fug team won. 4 players, including Viol from Fug team, had left. 2 from Mad Dog joined Fug. Coon and Civis were baffled, not understanding what had happened. Just then, Hatch emerged from the bushes, urging everyone to act fast to prevent the creation of the ultimate weapon. Bam was in danger. Everyone finally realized Bam was Viole. On Coon's team, Crocodile thought Bam would never quit the team. Coon, not one to assume, had Crocodile cover his face to hide his identity before meeting with other victorious teams. A guide robot welcomed them inside the house. Coon first looked for the match records of Fug and Mad Dog, telling others to return to their rooms. Everyone was confused. Another team arrived, mocking Viole, saying he must have fled from Mad Dog. Though Etchen and others were angry, they knew better than to fight there. Then Yiwa screamed. A giant bug was in the room. It was Civis team's Little B. Meanwhile, Coon was watching the match replay. Bam had rushed out at the start, and Rupi was gone. Something had happened. But why had Mad Dog allied with Fug, and where had Bam gone? A familiar voice then spoke behind Coon. The Snake Woman's team was also in the top 4. She told Coon that Fug had infiltrated 3 gamblers in this workshop battle, one of whom was her, all hunters prepared by Fug to capture Bam's companions. She then removed Coon's mask, declaring he would soon fall into eternal sleep. After she left, Coon fell deep in thought, trying to understand everything. Civis, who knew all, soon arrived, and the 2 teams' strategists finally met. Elsewhere, Beta sat alone on a high spot. Kasalu approached him, the one who had promised him freedom, and asked if he wanted to help Fug. They had made a pact. Beta was uninterested in their affairs. He only wanted Bam to feel the same pain as himself. Next, he would kill every one of Bam's important companions. When Bam woke, he found himself trapped at the base's lowest level. Ripur emerged from the darkness and explained the purpose of bringing Bam there, to transform him into a weapon for their master. This was the consequence of Bam's disloyalty, as he had met with former teammates and left the team. Rather than letting such a person become an assassin, it was better to turn him into a weapon that wouldn't resist. Soon, a dissolving solution provided by Archimedes would be sprayed here, dissolving everyone except for the spikes, and the strongest weapon would be born. For now, Bam should rest. Currently, Bam was deeply concerned about his companions but was unable to free himself. At this moment, his companions were ironically embroiled in internal disputes. Kun tried to explain to Civis but was interrupted by Hatch, indicating they all knew the situation and that Bam was in peril. Kun's composure was shattered when he asked how Hatch knew Bam was still alive. Hatch responded that Renault had told them. The 2 sides then exchanged information. Renault had infiltrated Archimedes and learned of Fug and the workshop's intentions to create a weapon by dissolving living beings. Bam was already in their hands, and the situation was urgent. Coon promptly gathered everyone from both teams to briefly share Bam's ordeal. Bam was imprisoned in the deep mountains. Crocodile questioned why Hatch hadn't spoken earlier. Perhaps they could have prevented Bam's capture. Hatch could only apologize, but Coon and Civis knew why. Archimedes was filled with Fug's experts, likely monitoring their communications and movements. Any rash actions could put them in danger, and Fug allowed them to come here to use them as hostages to bind Bam. Civis became increasingly angry as he spoke, but Coon had already thought of a solution, realizing the hint from Renault. Their presence here was useful because this workshop battle was their only chance to save Bam. Outside, Crocodile couldn't wait any longer and was about to rush out to save Bam, but was stopped by Coon, who said they would go together. He then asked Hatch when Archimedes would arrive at Bam's location. Hatch told them it would be in 2 hours, and Renault would try to delay as long as possible. Coon then smiled confidently, ready to rescue Bam and not give up on the elimination tournament. They could call Bam during the match. Meanwhile, Archimedes was in chaos. Announcements broadcasted that due to a system failure, a prisoner had escaped. This was Renault's doing. Like Coon, he believed that once the game started, there would definitely be a way to win. Meanwhile, the semi-finals of the elimination tournament had started. Coon and Civis kept in touch, planning to summon Bam during the match, which seemed to be the only way to both adhere to the rules and rescue Bam. It was known that aside from Bam, 3 other members had left the Fug team. Rupi and Horyang were known, and the third was a Fug seeker. It was certain that they were on Bam's side. Coon confirmed this through Emily. He asked Emily where Rupi was, and Emily responded that he planned to rescue Bam with Horyang. This information input into Emily indicated that one of the 3 deserters had messaged them. If they coordinated their efforts from inside and outside, and Rupi's group successfully rescued Bam, then Coon's team could summon him during the elimination tournament. Indeed, these 3 had such intentions. The seeker, Ute, was the one who fed the information to Emily. Before they could put Bam in a summonable state, Coon's side needed to prepare for summoning Bam. The finals of the elimination tournament were about to begin. Etchen and Blitz, as vanguards, charged towards their target, ready to summon immediately once prepared. Crocodile and Yiwa supported them while dealing with enemies and collecting as many points as possible. Han moved stealthily in the shadows, ready to snipe the enemy's vanguard at a crucial moment. Civis's team was on standby, waiting to act at the critical moment. This was also a long-awaited collaboration between the two. The question remained whether they could successfully retrieve Bam. The quarterfinals of the group knockout competition have officially begun. At the host's signal, Crocodile and the others all ran out. Etchen was determined to bring Bam back. Soon after starting, he was targeted by 2 enemies. Crocodile and Yiwa handled those blocking the way. Etchen, dragging Blitz, continued to push forward. Crocodile threw the first punch at a man wearing a straw hat, but the man didn't budge and instead sent Crocodile flying. Yiwa unleashed flames at another, but the man swallowed them all. The straw hat man then teleported behind Yiwa and knocked her down with a stick, then stepped on her back, immobilizing her. Both adversaries were mercenaries hired by Lady Snake. Initially, the straw hat man intended to kill Yiwa, but finding her attractive, he attempted to assault her instead. The next second, Crocodile punched him away. Elsewhere, Beta met another Fug member holding a container with their vanguard, capable of controlling hosts' bodies. Swallowing it would allow participation in the game, but at the risk of losing oneself. Beta swallowed it without hesitation and was unaffected. Meanwhile, Crocodile was overpowering the Straw Hat Man in a fierce battle. The fire-swallowing man suggested he cooperate with the Straw Hat Man. Crocodile allowed Yiwa to continue her fire attacks while he grabbed the Fire Eater's throat, preventing further swallowing. Yiwa's flames caused him to howl in pain, and the Straw Hat Man's umbrella couldn't withstand the fire and gradually melted. Crocodile then knocked out the Fire Eater onto the Straw Hat Man, eliminating both Snake Team members. Crocodile proudly declared his name to the world, saying he came to face his own turtle sons and would defeat anyone in his way. Just then, Beta arrived, asking if Crocodile and Yihua were Violet's allies. Both denied it. One claimed Bam was his prey, and the other refused to ally with Fug. Beta believed they weren't Bam's allies and chased after others heading to the summoning ground. Coon, overhearing their conversation, was stunned and quickly warned Crocodile and Yiwa that Beta was the one who had trapped Bam, marking him as their enemy. On another front, Echen continued to pull Blitz forward, but Blitz made indifferent remarks, suggesting Bam's fate was irrelevant to them. Angered, Echen threw him away. However, Blitz conjured flames in his palm aimed not at Echen, but at an enemy behind him. He told Echen to go to the summoning ground alone while he dealt with the enemy. Seeing this, Coon felt relieved. Beta was initially stopped by Little B, who boasts the fastest speed in the world. However, Beta easily dodged his attacks by only partially activating the living weapon inside his body. His legs, wrapped in lightning, brought him almost instantly in front of Little B. Just as he kicked out, Crocodile knocked him down with a swing of his weapon. Beta realized these two were also Bam's companions, blocking him to allow someone else to reach the summoning site, likely to summon Viol. At the same time, Bam, still trapped underground, decided not to wait passively for his companions and tried to break free himself. Outside, a masked woman stood guard while Rapport confronted her, demanding to know why she betrayed them. Despite this, no one could stop Fug's plan. Soon, the solution would dissolve Bam, and a weapon with unique powers would be born, heralding a new era under its master, Lord Galaga. Upon learning it was Galaga behind this, the masked woman revealed herself as Karen. Karen's faction had realized from the start that the bet was a lure, so they pretended to be deceived while gathering allies to help Bam. The red thorn implanted in Bam was actually a container for Enryu's thorn, and the summoning had likely already begun. Meanwhile, Bam, somewhat bewildered, watched as the giant chrysalis before him began to transform, and the thorn inside him reacted by forming giant hands that connected with the chrysalis, starting the fusion. Ripper panicked upon realizing this, but Karen had already escaped, leaving him to urgently message the Mad Dogs to come quickly. Elsewhere, Rupi and Horyang were searching for Bam, but accidentally triggered a trap, activating a large robot. Horyang stayed to fight the robot, while Rupi continued through other doors. Suddenly, he heard a familiar voice telling him to move aside, and a second later, a divine water pierced through the robot's body. Bam then walked out from behind the door. Meanwhile, Crocodile, still dealing with Beta's mind games, was told by Beta that he had thrown Bam into a place of despair from which he could never escape. After his declaration, Beta suddenly attacked Crocodile, who narrowly dodged by shrinking his body, unwilling to hear any slander about Bam. Crocodile, infuriated, lunged at Beta with his spear. Beta, filled with hatred for Bam and frustrated that so many sacrifices were made only for Bam to seek his own happiness, vowed to make Bam taste despair. Just as he spoke, Yiwa ambushed him, engulfing him in flames. However, the flames did no damage. Instead, upon hearing from the guide that Violet had escaped and the thorn was stolen, Beta completely lost his composure, ignoring Crocodile and Yiwa and rushing out. Bam has already met up with Rupi and Horyang. The strange chrysalis next to him is the thorn. Karen, arriving unnoticed, warned them of its danger, explaining that its true power was unpredictable once revealed. She was pleased with Bam's performance, even calling him a godlike figure, but Bam had no interest in being a god. He just wanted to return to his friends. Knowing Coon's plan, Karen offered to guide Bam, even though dangerous enemies were approaching. She asked if he was willing to risk his companion's safety to return. Bam, now unwilling to face everything alone, knew he had to be with his friends regardless of the hardships. Meanwhile, Echen had reached near his destination. Han, who had been hiding at the entrance, saw Madame Snake enter as well. Coon kept reminding Echen to keep the route secret. Bam and his group were blocked by Mad Dogs and a pack of Shadow Wolves, creatures created by fusing blood, capable of materializing instantly to attack. Karen advised them that these were killing machines, not to be fought with. Their goal was to escape. Rupi and Horyang were delayed fighting the Shadow Wolves, while Karen and Bam were sandwiched between Mad Dogs and Big Sister. However, persuaded by Karen, Bam broke through Big Sister's shield and escaped. Big Sister was not worried, knowing Bam was headed to the spring connected to the summoning site, which they had already sabotaged. However, Echen wasn't heading to the summoning site. Kun had confirmed with Emily that the place to summon Viole wasn't the spring, but a tool summoning site. So, Itchin went to the store. Upon reaching the store's spring, he finally contacted Bam. Seeing Bam safe brought tears to Itchin's eyes, and Bam could now face Coon as his true self. They had much to discuss, but the priority was to capture Madam Snake and summon Bam. Just as Itchin spoke, his body was suddenly pierced by Beta's hand.